The dude just said solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thankful Thursday. We like to call it Thankful Thursday around here because we're thankful. Hit it, man.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Thank you. And pushing the buttons on the thankful board over there is JP. Thankful for you. How are you, man?
I'm great. How about you? Thankful Thursday.
I like how you just turned it on there. I'm glad you're thankful. Now, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at the beginning of hour number 2, we got a longtime Congressman J.D. Hayworth. I remember him quite well. Very conservative, solid dude. He's going to be on with us at the beginning of the second hour, to cover down on issues he's working on now post-Congress to try and fight to get the cost of medications down. I like the sound of that. So, yeah, we'll be talking with former Congressman J.D. Hayworth coming up at the beginning of hour number 2. And then, you know the deal. It's Thankful Thursday. That means 2 of the people we're thankful for join us in studio. And we got a round of Butters and Lee coming up at halfway through hour number 2. Butters and Lee, y'all stand by for that one. And we'll just see where it goes. And then there's a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you gotta know.
That's right. The triple dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, in conjunction with that conversation with Congressman J.D. Hayworth, fighting pharma. Yeah. Fighting pharma. Why do Americans pay sometimes 400 to 1,000% more for the same medication made in the same factories as other Western nations? I'd like to know the answer to that. We're going to talk about fighting pharma. Can we get the prices down? That's number 1 on the triple dipper. Number 2, didn't get to it yesterday, so we're getting to it today. That's the plan. Military minded. Got a lot of folks in this audience, a lot of ruffians out there. Some are who are still green suiters now. Others are working in the defense industry or are veterans or have family that are or friends that are. All said and done, this is a very patriotic, military-minded audience. And so, yeah, we're going to cover down on some military-mindedness. We're going to hit some stories that give you the latest in what's going on with our U.S. military. And then number 3, look, I know it's New York City. I know it's not right here. But the election of the mayor in New York City is like the election of a congressman in many ways. It's like a nation unto itself. Did you know that if New York City broke off and became its own nation, it would have the 12th largest GDP in the world? That's crazy. And the guy who's about to be mayor potentially is also crazy. Mamdani magic, that's what I'm calling it. How is he weaving the spell over the people of New York? Well, we're going to talk about Mamdani magic as number 3 on the triple dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll just remind you guys that Stan McDonald, lawyer Stan McDonald, he is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way, 30-year veteran of the practice of law, longtime conservative. And yeah, I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. All right, look, I was thinking about what to talk about today, and it occurred to me that this is an audience that I've been encouraging to get in the mix for the longest time. I mean, you guys do. I'm not saying like I'm preaching to the choir, basically. But I've been saying since the day this show started over 4 years ago that it's going to be people like you who already care about the issues, who already invest yourself in the issues, who love the conservative policies and politics to actually get in the fray and run for office, at the very least to support a candidate. Pick one, pick a race, just one, doesn't matter what it is. Go get invested in it and do what you can to help people find their way forward to be elected as true conservatives in whatever level of politics we're talking about. And we need good people to run for office. There's always some election or another going on. There's always one. And I got to tell you too, by the way, campaigning for public office, it's one of the most rewarding and most exhausting things that I've ever done. I mean, just when you think you got it figured out, then you lose sight of the goal, or you can't see your way around, or you don't have the resources or the volunteers. Look, campaigning, it's not for the faint of heart, I'm telling you. But all the same, we need people to run who have strong principles and strong spines, who will put in the hours and knock on the doors and give the stump speeches, all for the opportunity to be the person selected for such a time as this. I don't care what level of politics. It all matters. Local, state, and federal. It all matters. but it's hard sometimes to find that way forward. And I got to ask you, have you ever had one of those moments? Let's talk about that, the way forward. Have you ever had one of those moments when you had absolutely no idea how to move forward? And I mean that in both the literal and the figurative sense. It can be really disconcerting, if you will, to suddenly realize you can't see the path. I used to spend a lot of time in the outdoors, whether it be military or civilian. I was always really comfortable with a map and a compass and had a good sense of direction, but it doesn't matter how good you think you are with directions or map reading. At some point, you're going to have that moment when you realize something ain't right. I mean, I spent time in the Rockies, the high plains deserts of Utah, the Appalachians, the Smokies. In Colorado, we hiked along the Continental Divide well above tree line for a week. It was epic. There were times in that trip when you would come over a ridge line, see the snow caps and the crystal clear blue sky, and you'd stumble upon a high mountain lake and you'd swear you're just the first person ever blessed to be able to see that spot. No trails, no roads, just a map and a compass and a backpack. But I've also hiked through more narrow and wooded vistas, like, beautiful in their own right, and most of those on actual designated trails. I remember once taking a group of kids backpacking in the Smokies. It was beautiful. My favorite time for packing was always in the cold months. So that would likely have been like in November or December timeframe. Well, there had been a major winter storm. It had come through just days before. The weather was all clear by the time we hit the trailhead, but half a day into our 4-day pack, the trail just disappeared. If you've ever hiked along the Appalachian Trail or some of the others like in the Smokies, you may have seen how trails are often marked with either a paint blotch or a tree or a small sign indicates you're still on the right path. But there's also the fact that when you're hiking, well-established trails that are often used will be just as easily to follow the footsteps of the people who've gone before you who've worn a path in the ground. Well, on that particular trip I mentioned a moment ago, there had been a major winter storm. Like I said, it just totally wiped out the trail. As we moved into the Smoky Mountains, it became really obvious the storm had been intense there. There were trees down. The landscape was all muddled. Debris was everywhere. And then all of a sudden, like I said, the trail was gone. I mean, gone. We were in one of the thickest parts of the foliage on an uphill climb, and the trail just phased out. It was buried. It was blocked. It was obscured by debris and downed trees. We couldn't even see where the markers were because so many trees were down. I had a map. I knew our rough position, but wow. We literally had to drop all of our packs and fan out. It took 20 minutes or so till somebody finally yelled, "Hey, there's a marker over here." So we gathered up our packs, moved to that marker, and then we had to repeat the process again until we found another marker, and eventually we regained the path and made our way forward. It wound up being a great trip, but for a while there, we had to forge our own path. I'm sure you've had it out on the open road that way too. You miss a turn, you come up on construction sites. What do? I remember once Charlene and I were driving home late one night, maybe like 1 a.m. We just moved our daughter down to college in Auburn. We're coming back up the road near Talladega. The same road we had just driven on early that morning. Only suddenly the road was gone. I mean, like gone. It was completely washed out from a mudslide, had barriers across the highway. You talk about confused. I'm tired as a dog. I'm confused as to how the road I'd been on that morning was now gone. I mean, like what? So I got out of the car with a flashlight. I walked up to the barriers. I looked at the hole in the ground. I just stood there. Another car pulled up and I asked that driver, "So what do we do now?" He just stared at me and said, "I have no idea." So we just doubled back, found a side road, worked our way through all kinds of farm lanes and fence rows, just basically following the direction of the moon until suddenly we broke out on the main road and finally made our way home. It's like a 45-minute detour just trying to make our own path, trying to find a way forward. But we eventually did. Why am I telling you this? My point here is there's usually a way. There's usually an avenue of approach. There's an ingress and egress point, if you will, but you may have to search for it, and it may take a few detours to get back on track. So let's talk about using what I just said about trails as an analogy for people running for office, because some of you guys right now are thinking, should I get involved? Which candidate should I choose? Should I run for office myself? Well, listen, it can be anything in life. You get off the course and you're not sure what to do next. Well, don't stop moving forward. But let me take a minute, though, and just talk to those who are out there running for office or working for someone who is. So in political speak, we're in the onset of the primary season. There's a bunch of folks out there right now running hot races. Alabama especially, this is going to be a crazy season as literally every single legislative position in the entire state, House and Senate is up for re-election, and every single statewide position like governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, all of them, they're all open seats. And folks are jumping into those races for some rowdy primaries. And then there's the race for the U.S. Senate being vacated by Tommy Tuberville. And it's no different in Tennessee. Governor is up for grabs as Bill Lee leaves office, but one congressman and possibly Senator Marsha Blackburn are jumping into that race, which also means their seats will be up for office or re-election. Wow. I mean, it's going to be madness. And I can sympathize as someone who has run some tough races. But here's the thing. Truthfully, some of the candidates are at times going to feel like they're running behind. Maybe the polls are low. Maybe their opponent has more money, is doing more speeches, or getting invited to more events, or who knows. Or you can't find your momentum, or you're just plain tired because it's exhausting to campaign, I got to tell you. But in politics, they like to say a week is a lifetime, and this primary still has 9 more months to go. Let me just say to all of you, you can stand on your head that long, my friends. You can. I'll tell you what you do. When you get that tired moment, you get a good night's sleep and you hit the ground running the next day. Because there's always one more chili supper to go to. There's always one more door to knock on, one more phone call you can make, one more vote to ask for. There's an old saying in politics, there's only 2 ways to run your political campaign, scared and unopposed. That's it, scared and unopposed. I've never had the luxury of running unopposed, so I just ran my races like a scalded dog and was told more than once that the way forward just didn't look good. You may be off the path. I'm not sure you're going to make it. Some pollster or other decided I was down, so we had to work harder and prove them wrong. Look, there's some magical stories out there for those of y'all that get down about running for office or whether your candidate's going to make it. There's some magical stories about the dark horse candidate winning the race. I mean, look at Donald Trump, right? Nobody gave him a snowball's chance when he came down the gold escalator to announce his candidacy for president. We all went to bed the night of that first election with Hillary Rodham Clinton being president of the free world as far as we could tell, and like a freight train, Trump just barreled right on through. Or how about that race up in New Jersey? This good old boy truck driver, the craziest story. Good old boy truck driver named Edward Durr. He only spent $150. That's it. That's all he had. He spent $150, but he worked his tail off, man. And he beat the New Jersey Speaker of the State House, the man who was seen as being the most powerful man in state politics. He beat him just by outworking him. Or right here in Alabama. Back in 2010, a guy named Senator Lowell Barron, he was the man who held sway over the Alabama State House for decades. He was seen as one of the most powerful men in Montgomery. And along comes some no-name dude named Shadrach McGill. Shadrach McGill, who campaigned his heart out despite massive dirty tricks being heaped on him by all of Lowell Barron's cronies. And old Shad McGill, he became Senator McGill. He beat Lowell Barron by 1 point in the final polls. So yeah, politics is like hiking trails. Sometimes it's as clear as can be, and sometimes it seems like the trails have been wiped away and all you can do is get out your map and orient yourself to the ground and try to find the trail again. But whatever you do, you keep moving forward. You can't sit still. Trails don't appear on their own. You have to push forward. You have to cut the brush. You have to find the trail markers. You look for the signs from people that have gone before you. And sometimes when it gets really crazy, that's when you become a pathfinder, a trailblazer. You just start blasting through on your own, blazing your own trails through the political forest. That's politics. What I'm saying here, y'all, is that some of you are candidates, some of you are volunteers, some of you are staffers. You're staring at the primaries and you're feeling like they're a million miles away and you can't see the path anymore and you're getting tired, already getting tired. People keep filling your head up with versions of what you got to do or what your opponent said about you or what the comments are on Facebook. Who cares? And you can't see the way forward because you're exhausted. Well, I say, suck it up, candidate. The path is still there. You just may have to jog some side roads or look for the markers on downed trees, but the path is still there. Having been there before, I just want to encourage you and your volunteers. We're only at the beginning. So go run like a scalded dog. Be a pathfinder. There is always a way forward. And the election day will get here. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, it's true, man. I'm going to tell you right now, running a race for elected office at any level, I don't care what it is, it's exhausting. It is. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting your name at risk. But if you get busy, if you keep blazing the trail, if you keep looking for the trail markers, you will find your way forward. Just keep working. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. Holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's like go.
So you're in that mode right now. All right. She's in her pajamas.
She's in her pajamas. It's snowing outside, and she just doesn't want to be there. And so I keep dragging and keep counteroffering, and she loses. And she says, "That's it. 15 years with the crime of violence. That's my final offer. No way with the violence in your crime. and the assault cases that you've caught in county jail, these 2 extra assault cases, will I ever drop this crime of violence? And so on a 32-year sentence with a crime of violence, you're going to do 24. Okay. So that matters. It's a huge, like, you're going to do more of your time.
Yeah.
And then on a nonviolent, you're going to do maybe a third of your time or less. Okay. So I'm heavy focused on that crime of violence. Like, okay, we got her down to a decent year range, and I don't know where this came from. It had to have been a God thing. And I looked at my lawyer. I said, you don't tell Judge Toth anything. I said, you walk in there to that district attorney, go tell her that, you know, my client doesn't want to end up in he wants to change his life. He doesn't want to end up in a maximum security prison with swastikas all over his face. He wants to change his life. He's willing to give you a year if you drop the crime of violence. And the way their thing works is like, oh, I get 16 instead of 15, cha-ching. And all of a sudden, all that, you know, conviction about crime of violence just went out the window.
So she got a trophy, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And so I gave her the year, which is that's good for her. So she drops the crime of violence, and I get 16 years with no crime of violence is what I ended up getting sentenced to. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That
I
is
was
crazy. You are into sales.
Yeah. And I was the happiest person ever to be sentenced to 16 years. Like, yay, 16 years in prison. But again, everything's relative when you face it to 32 or 384. Yeah.
All right. You said in one interview I saw with you, I've forgotten, it's some folks that you had known, but they have their own podcast, Emily and somebody else. I've forgotten the guy's name, the husband and wife team.
Chris and Emily, yeah.
Yeah, Chris and Emily. But at one point you said in that solitary confinement where you began having that epiphany about accepting responsibility for your own actions and you're not a victim of that, you felt like God had thumped you.
Yes.
But you still weren't there yet.
Yeah.
But then you started meeting and hanging out with a guy who, in your words, what I saw was he began to drop seeds of the gospel in your life.
100%.
And was that in prison? Was that in county jail? Where was
Prison.
that? That was prison.
Yeah. So here I am. God thumps me on the head and shows me it's my fault.
Right.
Shortly after that, I get into this negotiation hearing.
Right.
My heart's softened to the idea of God and him working in my life.
Because he has been.
Because he has been. And then I get 16 instead of 32, you know, so now I'm looking at getting out in 5 years instead of 24 or never. So I knew God had moved. And so I'm like, okay. But I was always open to God. I always prayed to God. I always knew that God was real. I had some experiences in church growing up that were like bad experiences, but good experiences. I don't know how to really describe it. Like, these people had something that I wanted, but I also saw how judgmental and kind of hypocritical that they were. Yeah. And so I was just like, but I knew that God was real. And so I prayed. Like, when I was a kid, I prayed. Through my addiction, I prayed. When I was a fugitive, I prayed a bunch. And when I was in county jail, I prayed even more. Wondering about what my sentence was. I knew God was real, but I didn't understand how Jesus factored into it, and no one ever really taught me about Jesus. So I was agnostic. I knew that God was there, but I didn't understand how it worked. Right?
Yeah.
And so I get to the first prison I get to is called Huerfano County Correctional Center, which is in Walsenburg, Colorado. You go in there. You got in Colorado you wear greens, and so you got your greens on. And you've got a couple extra pairs of greens and a couple pairs of state-issued underwear, like a cup and a spoon, and you walk into your unit, and the thing slams behind you, and you're now in your unit that's got 120 guys in there. And you're like, okay, what's about to happen? Because the new guy comes in, fish, fresh fish, and here comes this big, huge dude with a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm.
Oh, former Marine, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, well, always a Marine, they say. True. I've made the mistake of calling him a former Marine and been corrected 17 times. So, he walks up and reaches out and shakes my hand. He says, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian, and this is a faith pod." And so all the movies that were going off in my head about the doors slamming and someone coming up to stab me having to fight to see if I was tough, like there's all the things that I thought could have, would have, should have. But this big, burly, huge dude who definitely could have beat me up is like, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod." That wasn't on the, on the bingo card. That's correct. Not on the bingo card. Yep. And I'm.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, Thankful Thursday. Here we are. Hey, got to real quick tell you about Stan McDonald. Yes, indeedy. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, is the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way Monologue. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. He's also, by the way, a longtime conservative. I know him personally. I can tell you, Stan McDonald has been in the fray, in the mix, doing all the policies and politics that right-side ruffians care about for years. All right, so yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, though, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your opposition would have no greater foe. So you need an attorney in North Alabama. I'm going to give you his number. You ready? That's attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Oh, here we go. No recitation made. Oh, I'm just going to start all over again. I'm not going to call that one. Just pretend that didn't happen. It's a mulligan. Thank you very much. I just pulled that one into the rough, and I guess drop another one. No representation made. The quality of the legal service before is greater than the quality of legal service for all your orders or something like that. I can't do it today. I don't know what my deal is.
That's like an 8.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Don't even give me an 8. That's like I got an E for effort or something. All right. So yeah, Stan's a decent lawyer. Other lawyers are decent too. That's all I got to tell you. All right, we're done. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. You can text it right now. Oh, by the way, we just got word that we'll be able to have you call it very soon, so that's good. Yay. But yeah, 833-68-RIGHT. Text me your feedback. I see I got a couple of them right now. TL from Huntsville. If I can get my mouse to work here. TL from Huntsville says, Phil, thanks for the inspiring monologue. Happy Thankful Thursday. And then he has a quote. He says, do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Awesome. He said, whether running for office, starting a business, or organizing a charity, forge ahead and lead the way. TL, appreciate you as always, my friend. John from Huntsville checking in too, says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you, sir. Also, did you hear that NPR and PBS are on the verge of losing a massive amount of funding, which in my opinion is a good thing as long as they leave my cooking shows alone? So, by the way, JP, have you watched any of the first round of the British Open golf tournament?
No, I've not.
You have not?
No, been working.
I think the only thing I'm going to miss, by the way, on PBS is I've always liked the Antiques Roadshow. I don't know why. I have.
I didn't know that was PBS.
It was American Pickers before there was American Pickers. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, Charles, what is a faith pod? And he goes, man, we do discipleship in here. And, we do Bible studies, we do discipleship, and I take seminary classes on the weekends, and we do praise and worship every single morning. And they did. And
he's saying words you don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out of here immediately. That was my response to that.
Put you in the cult ward.
Get me out of here. You ever seen Happy Gilmore when? Anyway, there's the scene with the lady in the old folks' home where she falls and get me out of here. But that's how I felt. I was like, I got to get out of here. But it's prison, and it turns out you can't get out of there. Who knew? And so I was stuck, and it was a good thing. And Charles really just became my friend. He didn't browbeat me. He didn't, he wasn't over the top. He was my friend, and you get in there, you don't have coffee, you don't have soups, you don't have, sweats, you don't have any of that stuff. And so he gave me, all those things. Like, here, you need some of this, you need some of this. Hey, if you need anything, let me know. So he just became my friend, and his conversation would turn to a subject or a situation. He would kind of Socratically ask me questions.
He would weave Jesus into it.
And he would weave Christ into the questioning and say, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And I remember one of the funniest ones he did was, this is pre-saved Brian in prison, okay? And I'm talking about, girls and having sex with girls and all this other stuff. And Charles just looks at me, he's like, but wouldn't it be like so much more beautiful if like you just didn't have sex again until you got married? And I died laughing so hard and just pointing at Charles like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? Flash forward, that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. And it was because of that question that happened before I got saved that Charles did. So go ahead.
No, I got to say, part of my weird resume is that I spent 7 years in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life.
Yeah.
which is headquartered in Colorado Springs, by the way. I spent time in Springs because of that.
Yeah.
Love that city. Probably back when you were actually messing up things. But we called it relational evangelism.
Yeah.
It was earning the right to share your faith is what we called it.
Yeah.
And it was not relationship, with a catch. It was relationship with purpose. And also, oh, by the way, if you don't love Jesus, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
So it was true friendship, but we earned the right to share our faith, we called it. And there's a passage of scripture just came to me while we're sitting here talking, hearing you say it. I believe it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians. It says, because we loved you so much, we were content not just to share the gospel, but our very lives as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the gospel's really important, but I'm even going to share who I am in a relationship with you. That's where Charles was, it sounds like.
Yep. 100%.
Very cool. All right, so you're hanging out with Charles.
Hanging out with Charles. We're at Walsenburg about a year in. I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. He gets shipped to Sterling Correctional Facility. So I'm there on my own. Huerfano County Correctional Center in Walsenburg was a private prison. So it's like Corporations Correction of America, or I guess they call it some other company now, Core Civic. It was one of those prisons, and it got shut down. And so I get moved to Benton County, which is another Core Civic prison. It was Corrections Corporation of America at the time. I'm there for 6 months, and then they moved me to Canyon City, to Arrowhead Correctional Center, which is like Camp Cupcake. Okay. And so they moved me to Camp Cupcake, and they didn't know they made a mistake with my sentence and how much time I have. I'm not allowed to be at Camp Cupcake, right? I'm not supposed to be. And I'm there for like 2 months, and it's up in the mountains in Canyon City, Colorado. I'm like, man, I can get used to this. It was like God gave me a little vacation. And then once they figured it out, they ended up shipping me to Sterling Correctional Facility. I walk out on the yard at Sterling Correctional Facility, which is a massive prison, right? There's 4 separate yards, so I didn't have to land on the yard with him. But I walk out on they call it the 20s yard where I was, and boom, there's Charles.
How about that?
Right away. So
back together again.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah. And he was a softball coach. That was his way of doing evangelism. He put together a softball team, and it was like, is it, I remember how shocked I was when I walked into a medium security prison. So there's like killers and everything in this prison. And there's a softball team, which requires these things called metal bats. I'm like, they have metal bats in prison? Like, that seems counterintuitive.
Who thought this was okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did. He coached a softball team, and I was the third baseman, and that was his way that he would evangelize guys. And
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show. I mean, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the border from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. And then all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and live streaming the show. A bunch of y'all are live streaming right now. Live streaming the show on places like Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, some of y'all podcast it too. I say all that to say, wherever you catch this show, in whatever means you are listening to what we have to say, it blesses us. It means a lot to us. We couldn't do it without you. Y'all are the reason why we're here. So thank you very much. A couple of more text messages real quick before I jump into the dipper. Connor from Huntsville. Connor says, hey, Phil, really inspiring monologue. I like that you brought out all the races, that all races matter, because liberals can do some of their greatest damage in local races, and they just get their foothold in there, and then they move up through the system. It's exactly right. By the way, so Connor, great point. Thank you for bringing that out again. And I got to add to it and say, y'all think back to COVID. You remember there were cities that would shut things down. There were city council that would be more draconian than the other city council. There was like down in Orange Beach, they were saying, no, we're going to open the beaches back up. And right down the way, there'd be another town on the beach saying, we ain't doing it. And so what I'm saying is local matters. And then there's local school boards. And then there's local things like, library boards, stuff like, it's amazing what's become basically a center of controversy, which means that good people have got to get in there. So yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Connor. Appreciate you. Jeff from Indiana checking in says, Phil, you've never had a race running an enemy territory as much as I have. I ran 2 straight election cycles in a county that's completely Democrat, where I was the only opposition candidate on the ballot both cycles. Wow. Actually gave the county a choice to vote for someone other than in the primary, which is where it usually happens. In fact, I was always a registered Democrat before that, because no Republican run, and the only way you had to vote is which Democrat you wanted. Wow. Jeff, I don't know. I think you've told me this before, but tell me what you ran for. What offices was it? I think was it county commission or something, but let me know what you ran for. I'm curious. All right, listen, coming up in about 20 minutes, we've got somebody coming on the show who I distinctly remember. I mean, he was a longtime conservative, a great voice for conservative policies like, us ruffians care about. Rightside ruffians, we care about the principles. We care about the stands. We care about not just that somebody's there, but what they stand for when they're there. Well, J.D. Hayworth is coming on, and J.D. Hayworth had a great reputation as being a guy who was not only a veteran broadcaster himself, but he was a true conservative voice in Congress for, I think, 6 terms from Arizona. Anyway, he's going to be on in a few minutes to talk about something that it really boggles the mind. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Charlene and I are fairly healthy. Praise God. But we've had family members who have had to go through quite a bit. And we've had also, the occasional thing of our own where we have to, go get treatment or get medication for something. And I'm amazed sometimes at the cost. And then you look at it and go, okay, we're blessed that we have an income, but this is something that's tough for people that are on a fixed income or a lower income. And it's just, my word. And then you think about the price of medications. You're thinking, ain't no way that little vial or that little pill bottle or that little whatever should ever cost that much. And yet apparently it's necessary, they say. All right. Why is it though? And by the way, I was not tracking this. I did not know it to be this way until President Trump was campaigning. And part of what he said he wanted to do was he wanted to bring the cost of medications back in line with the rest of the world. And I thought, wait a minute, what are you saying to me? You mean it's not expensive everywhere? Well, apparently, the way the system has been rigged over the years, Americans oftentimes pay exponentially more for the exact same medications, the exact same pharmaceuticals that other Western nations or what I would call progressive nations don't pay. I mean, why? I mean, a lot of those are even manufactured right here. A lot of them are manufactured, or at the very least, the research is done here. Why are we footing the bill? And there's a lot of arguments as to why, but the bottom line is because they care less about the consumer, and they give a break to other countries to get in their markets, and the other countries demand the price to be lower, so they say, okay. But whether it be lobbyists or other indifferent attitudes or public officials who don't care in the United States, we wind up paying more. And that is just absolutely not right. I mean, like beyond not right. It is wrong. It is shades of wrong like I can't even begin to describe to you. All it does is hurt America and hurt Americans. So if you remember, one of the things that happened just, May of this year? Yeah, May 12th. I got a piece here that I pulled off the White House website. I was going back trying to remind myself of how this all went to bat and what happened. But I've got a piece here from whitehouse.gov. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands, dated May the 12th. The president signed into an executive order that we would have what's called most favored nation status on pricing of pharmaceuticals. What does that mean? Well, that means if there's let's just pick one. Let's go ahead and say Ozempic, which is apparently a big deal. Let's say Ozempic costs, I don't know, $100 a dose here. Well, if somewhere else they're paying $20 a dose, then that's called the most favored nation status, and we want $20 a dose here. If they're going to sell the exact same medication over there in another country, then we want it to be that price here too. Bam. Whatever the best price is out there, that's the best price for Americans, is what the executive order basically says. So yeah, he starts off the executive order by saying the United States has less than 5% of the world's population, but it funds 3/4 of global pharmaceutical profits. That is just wrong. Did you get that? Less than 5% of the world's population in the United States, but 3/4, we're talking like 75%. 75% of the global pharmaceutical profits come from less than 5% of the world's population here in America. That's gross. It's egregious. The president said it's a purposeful scheme in which drug manufacturers deeply discount their products to be able to access foreign markets and subsidize that decrease through enormously high prices in the United States. So think about it. Germany says, yeah, we'll take Ozempic in our market. We'll get that approved, but we want it to be priced at, let's go back to my analogy, $20 here. That's it. Well, over there, maybe Deutschmarks. But anyway, the bottom line is they want it priced low. In order to make up the difference, the pharmaceutical companies, many of which are based in the United States, go, okay, we'll do that, but we're going to jack up the price in America because no one's going to stop us. Well, now we're starting to see the stop. Drug manufacturers, says the continued a piece of the executive order, drug manufacturers, rather than seeking to equalize their evident price discrimination, agree to other countries' demands for low prices and simultaneously fight against the ability for public and private payers in the United States to negotiate the best prices for their patients. It's an abuse of American generosity, said the president. He said Americans should get the best deal. I'm for that. I'm absolutely for that. The best deal? Well, yeah. So he gave several things he wanted to have happen. I won't go into all of them, but I'll just give you a few pieces. Take all this. He directed the Secretary of Commerce to take all necessary and appropriate action to ensure foreign countries are not engaged in any act or policy that is discriminatory. In other words, there's not somebody out there who's engaging in price fixing with an intent to hurt us. Okay. And then he established the most favored nation pricing. Now, this was May 12th. He said within 30 days of that executive order, he wanted it to be done to where the President for Domestic Policy, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and other relevant executive departments shall communicate most favored nation price targets to all pharmaceutical manufacturers. In other words, telling them, hey, if you're charging this one in England and that one in Germany and this one over here in Sudan and that price in Venezuela, guess what? Those are the prices we want here. Just listen. And I got news. If they raise the price in Venezuela in order to lower the price here, I don't care. What I'm saying is we should not be paying the exorbitant amounts that we're paying. It's galling. I mean, how many times have you seen, well, you haven't met your deductible yet, which means it's an out-of-pocket expense. Oh, great. How much is that going to be? Well, there went dinner out with my wife. Well, there went my ability to pay the rent. Well, there went my ability to buy new shoes for my kids. It's just amazing what people have to go through just to get their prescription medications. Now, I will say this. I think that we're an overly prescribed nation. We are. I think prescription medications are sometimes a racket. But the ones that are necessary, the ones you have to have, we're not talking about electives. We're not talking about things that you need, because you just felt like it. We're talking about things you need because you can't live without it. But that most favored nation pricing status says the secretary shall propose a rulemaking plan to impose that most favored nation's pricing, and the secretary shall consider certification to Congress to begin to. So here's the thing. What he wants to do is have Congress jump in on it. And I agree with that. This will not remain in effect if we're waiting on the next president or the next president to maintain it. This is a Trumpism. This is a thing that no one's been willing to go down that road. This is a Maha issue for RFK Jr. This is absolutely something that is unique unto the Trump administration, but it makes so much sense that I look at it and go, why would we not? In fact, let's go one step further. Why have we not up until now? All right, more to come on this. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back. I'll ding on this a little bit more. Text me in if you want to. I'd love to hear if you've had any experiences with, massive price hikes on your pharmaceuticals. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
And so I get to Sterling, and he's like, hey, what was great about Sterling is they had grass. So I was excited to play softball there, but that's neither here nor there. And so he's like, man, you want to play softball again? Yeah. So he's just doing the same thing, friends, ministering, planting seeds. And he goes, man, Brian, you got parole coming up in a couple of years. You really need to get you some certificates for the parole board. I'm like, great. And he's like, well, I'm the chaplain's assistant. I can get you into some programs. And the chaplain's office was over all the programs, secular or otherwise. I'm like, cool, yeah, get me in. And he gets me into them, and it's they're faith-based programs.
Ah.
And so I got in there, and I'm like, Charles. So I get
snuck
in.
that gospel in on you again.
He did. And but it was really interesting. And I get in there, and the first program was like Kumbaya, come as you are. You know, it was very, you know, it was not very high theology. It was not rigorous. It was just like, we want to love on you. But in that program, there was like 5 or 6 other guys that were like Charles, guys who'd been down for like 20 years that were men, and they were steeped in the word. And I got around those guys, and I'm just like, geez, like I'm drawn to this, but I can't admit it. And so that program ends, and I went to Charles. I'm like, hey man, I think I need some more certificates for the parole board. And he's like, okay,
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
And so he gets me into this next one. Well, it was very high theology, and it was very rigorous, and it was very much, this is what the Word of God says. It's called The Truth Project with Dr. Del Tackett, which is Christian Worldview and Apologetics.
I got it written down. I was going to ask you about it.
So good. Like, I highly recommend everything Del Tackett does. Everyone should just go and look at all of it. I mean, he did Answers in Genesis. He does The Truth Project. He's got, you know, so many great things. Watch, you know, but what this one is Christian Worldview and Apologetics. You come in, you watch an hour-long video, and then you have an hour-long table discussion afterwards. And I would watch the hour-long video that was, you know, very, this is what the Word of God says, this is this, but it's like applying it to creation and politics and culture. And it was just, it was
giving you a base.
Yeah. And it was so good.
Worldview,
yeah, so good. But when you're not a Christian, it's not so good, right? And so I'm like, this is bullcrap. I hate this. You guys are stupid. And I did. I told those guys at the table, if you believe this crap, you guys are idiots. You're stupid. And I always tell people, it's like, just because they're Christians doesn't mean they're not convicts, okay? And so, like, you tell someone, even us, like, if someone would came up and, like, put their finger in our face and said, you're stupid for believing Jesus, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't punch him in the face, right? But so here I am in prison doing just that, and Charles is just done. He's just, like, throwing his hands in the air. He's like, oh, my gosh. And so this goes on for, like, 2 or 3 weeks where I'm, like, full tilt arguing with these guys. And we walk back to the unit, and you know, so here's the education building, our unit's over here, and there's a sidewalk that you got to walk around like that. And we're walking back, and we get to about right here, and Charles just looks over at me, and he says, Brian, why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? Jesus being to give him a chance, right? And for whatever reason, in God's sovereignty, as I look at it, that was the moment, okay? And all my guard, all my, you know, defensive mechanisms, for whatever reason, I just said, okay. And kind of as I said earlier, I knew God was real, but I didn't understand Jesus. And he's asking me to give Jesus a chance, not God, but Jesus, which was different. I said, okay. So I went back to my cell and prayed, as I often did. And I said, God, if I need to believe this Jesus character was truly your son, these were my problems with Jesus, okay? And it turns out they're pretty big issues. Said, if this Jesus character was truly your son, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect, I'm scoffing as I say all this, I'm like, he lived a perfect life, that he died and his death did something for me, and that he rose from the dead. God, if I need to believe that to be okay with you, I need you to show me something, because I'm having a really hard time with this. So I go to sleep that night, and I have a horrible, horrible nightmare. I mean, it was a crazy nightmare, and I still remember, like, a lot of it, which is crazy, but it didn't make a lot of sense what was happening in it, like flashing faces. It even felt demonic. Right.
Well, and it probably was.
Yeah. And I'm falling off of a cliff at the end of it. And right before I hit the ground, I wake up. Like when you're falling in a
like
dream.
real life wake up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like wake up. Whoa. And the only thing I can see, it's completely dark in the cells. And we have those old red digital clocks. Right. And so the only thing you can see in the room when I wake up is the red digital clock. And it says 3:16.
Huh.
And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16. And it just, boom. Right, and that was the answer to my question, right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. You asked, I answered, buddy. It's Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to church. So I did. I waited till 8, and I went to Christian services, as they call it in prison, because they have to be politically correct. Went to Christian services, and I don't remember. I sat as far off to the side as I could with my friend Ramon that was on the softball team. Ramon's such a cool dude. He's a giant black dude, just yoked. I'm talking like.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. So part of common sense is this whole thing with pharmaceutical prices. Now, by the way, this morning I did my morning drive. A lot of y'all have seen that every morning now I've started doing this thing where I call Thoughts on the Morning Drive, and I post it on social media. It's like a minute and a half long, but it's like some thought about something in the news or whatever. So this morning I actually compared what's happening with, have you heard about Coca-Cola and the pharmaceuticals? So President Trump announced yesterday on Truth Social that he's been in discussions with Coca-Cola, and they've agreed to stop using high fructose corn syrup and go back to using cane sugar. Okay. My first thought is that's cool because I've had Mexican Cokes before. They're made with cane sugar and they taste better. And then I thought, wait a minute. Are we the only country using high fructose corn syrup? And pretty much we are. Now, there are others, but for the most part, it's a United States thing. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why would we have something, high fructose corn syrup, which is actually worse for our bodies, harder for our systems to process, can create, some issues there, if you will. I won't go into all of them, but it can create issues. We do that in lieu of actually using sugar, like cane sugar. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because somewhere back in the 70s and 80s, someone decided that, hey, all the corn subsidies we're paying, we ought to get more out of it. So let's go ahead and say high fructose corn syrup can be used in soft drinks. That's awesome. Coke was one of the first. And then people discovered it for candy and other things. So high fructose corn syrup gets used everywhere because it's government subsidizing corn. And then, oh, by the way, creating regulatory opportunities, and then lobbyists get involved and manufacturers can make it cheaper, sell it here cheaper. At the same time, in Mexico, right across our border, they're using cane sugar to make the exact same drink. And I looked at that and I thought, that's just like this freaking pharmaceutical thing. I'd already planned on the show today, right? So I'd already planned on putting on the show today this issue about fighting pharma. And I got to thinking, why do we keep doing this stuff to ourselves? It's like we're the most advanced nation in the history of all history, and we keep inflicting self-inflicted wounds upon ourselves. Why do we do this? And I'll tell you why. It's money and it's lobbying. That's what it boils down to. The big pharma interests, and by the way, I'm not just against pharmaceuticals. They're a necessary thing, and they're also the wonders of modern science sometimes. But they're also abusive in many ways. And big pharma is out there advertising, spending billions of dollars every year doing what's known as direct-to-consumer marketing. That's where you and I are watching TV. JP and I might be watching a game, and we have to wait through like 4 commercials in a row for this medication and that medication, and do you have these symptoms, and what do you do, and tell your doctor, and yada yada. And it's like, okay, so we abuse ourselves with constant input of all the prescriptions we just have to have them. They're the best one. And then you find out they cost 400% more than what they pay for them in Canada or what they pay for them in Germany. Makes no sense whatsoever. None. Bert from Owens Crossroads checked in. He says another cost increase in medications and healthcare costs in general is the treatment of illegal aliens that do not pay when using hospital emergency rooms for primary healthcare and not paying anything. Of course, Obamacare exacerbated this. Good point. It is. That doesn't explain all the price gouging we see in the foreign nations, though. Wayne from Faulkville says, Phil, after I left the military, I took a job in Kuwait as a contract police officer. My wife suffers from migraines. At the time, we were paying almost $400 for 10 pills. She came to visit, but she forgot her medication. We were able to go directly to the pharmacy and get the exact same pills, no prescription, for $1.67 each. Good Lord. Needless to say, we stocked up. Wow. See, that's nuts. So he's in Kuwait, which is a very modern nation. He's in Kuwait, and we're paying $400. What's the math here, JP? That's $40 a pill, right? That's $400, 10 pills, $40.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure why I had to ask you because I looked at it and then suddenly did the math in my head.
I certainly am not the math authority on the show.
By the way, JP, that's $40 a pill.
Okay, that's cool.
$40 a pill versus $1.67. Why do we do this to ourselves?
Somebody's getting rich off of that.
Somebody's getting rich off of that, and it ain't you and me. I will say this. There's also negotiations right now currently going underway. I got this off of NPR. Phil, did you go to NPR? I did. I go to these places sometimes, so you don't have to. President Trump is touting his executive orders to lower drug prices. The Medicare drug price negotiations began back during the Biden administration are still continuing. So this is NPR trying to say, we did some good stuff too. This came like 2 weeks after the executive order I told you about a moment ago. This is them saying, well, Biden was trying to help. He was trying to do something. Okay, stop it. But here's the thing. Part of the executive order of Trump setting the stage for most favored nation status on pricing is literally the fact that some of the biggest providers of reimbursement for medications is, of course, the federal government through Medicare and Medicaid. And as long as they are there doing that, they are going to have the ability to have the weight of this executive order in their favor to use. So I see this as being, that's probably one of the best places that's going to be helpful. But yeah, and then I've got several articles that I probably won't even get to right now because there's no time, but this is right around that same time, May 17th, RFK Jr. speaking on behalf of his position as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He said that President Donald Trump's bold executive order on drug pricing is not just policy, it's a revolution in healthcare affordability. The plan is simple yet transformative. Ensure that Americans pay no more for medications than citizens of other wealthy nations. And he gave an example. He talked about a drug called GLP-1. GLP-1 costing $88 in London costs $1,000 in the United States. Good Lord. That's more than 10 times. Said even after manufacturers' discounts to insurers, Americans still pay over $400 for the identical medication from the same company produced in the same facility. It's unreal. Well, somebody who's been working this issue profoundly is former Congressman J.D. Hayworth from Arizona. He's going to be on the line with us here momentarily. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Waist this big, perfect six pack, pecs this big, arms just huge, dude. And I had this thing where, and it was a problem in prison. It's the Ned Flanders Christianity. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. If you ever watched The Simpsons, Ned Flanders. Oh, yeah. Okay, so like okie diddly okie doke. It's like this soft kind of weak, effeminate, gay thing. Like a lot of Christians, they're like nicer than God and holier than Jesus. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing, and so. I always rubbed me the wrong way, but here's Ramon, this dude, anyway, I'm not gonna, he's not that guy. That's what I'll say, right? And he was the guy that brought the blood gang from California to Colorado, cold-blooded killer until God got a hold of him. And now he's like the prison evangelist. These young guys come in, and he was in Unit 21, which is where you go when you first get to Sterling. And then from Unit 21, you get sent out to all the other buildings. But they kept him in there, and these new guys would come in, specifically young black guys, and he would body him up and be like, this is the gospel. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. It was really interesting. So anyway, this is the guy that I went to go sit in church with because I don't want to be around any of the Ned Flanders guys. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to let Charles think that he won, And so I sit off to the side in the back. And I don't remember anything Chaplain Davis said. I don't remember what the sermon was on at all. But at the end, he says, all right, guys, we're going to do an invitation. I look over at Ramon. I'm like, brother, what's an invitation? I just knew he was going to be like, brother, that's where you invite Jesus into your heart. But that's not what he said. He said, brother, if you got something hindering your relationship with God, you can go down there and pray with that man about it. And he stepped aside because he already knew that God was on me. As they say in the South, I've learned some Alabama euphemisms. God was on me like a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat. Anyway, so I walk the aisle, as it were, the proverbial aisle. Get down there. Chaplain Davis grabs my hand, puts his other hand on my shoulder. He says, Mr. Dawson, how can I pray for you? So look, chap, I'm not here to make any decisions. I just want to pray that God would soften my heart so the truth can come in because I feel him working on me, but I'm fighting him with everything I have. And we get done praying, and he's just got tears pouring down his face. And Chaplain Davis is not a tears down the face guy. He's not a hugger. He's not a crier. He's just, he's a man, and again, I'm a man and I hug and I cry, but like he's not that kind of man. And to see him weeping in front of 130 inmates, I was like, what just happened? And I count that the moment that God saved me. And so I leave there, and Charles gives me a Bible, Thomas Nelson, New King James Bible. Here you go. And I said, start reading the story of Joseph. And so I get back to my cell, and I start reading the story of Joseph, and I'm hooked. I can't get enough, feasting on God's word. And that goes on for about 9 months. It went on long past that, but about 9 months into me feasting on God's word, really just being shaped and molded by his word, loving it, feasting on it, it changing me. Mm-hmm. About 9 months into that, I look around and all my friends in there have pen pals. They've got some girl they're writing, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, let's see. So I call my mom. My mom was running a Facebook page for me, and so what that looks like is she logs in, but like the account she logs into has my picture on it, where I'm not in prison. That's my bait. Look, I'm not in prison, but I really am. And so she's running this Facebook page.
So your mom's catfishing for you.
She's catfishing for me, yeah. And we were very unsuccessful at first, and so I say, basically like, look, don't reach out to these girls. They're from my bad past.
It's cool that your mom was doing that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And she. So we reached out to all these girls that were like healthy and went to college and weren't drug addicts. Well, I don't know if you know this about healthy girls who aren't drug addicts. They're not real big on writing guys in prison. So those, you have to pick one or the other. You can either have the unhealthy girl that'll write.
I've never studied that, but I can imagine it. Yeah,
no,
okay.
it's there. And so I struck out completely, and I said, okay, God, I can't take any more rejection. If you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to have to do it, because I'm done.
We're talking old school, write it down on a piece of paper, pen pal.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, everybody in there, yeah.
Put it in an envelope, snail mail it out. Yep.
Correct, yep. And
the prison probably has to read your letter to make sure it doesn't say anything, right?
I think they read a lot more of the ingoing than they do the outbound, but it depends. Okay. Like if you're writing from prison to prison, they read both. Like they have some system. I don't know how they do it, but there's definitely people who wrote some stuff they shouldn't have that got in trouble, and I can't remember which direction the mail was going. But you don't seal it. Yeah. You put it in there and it's open. I remember that now that you say that, because I always say, oh yeah, I sealed it, but I actually no, you don't. You put your thing in there and you put your stamp on it and you drop it in the mailbox, and then they go through and open it and look at it and then send it out. So forgot about that now that you bring that up. So no one wants to write me. Said, okay, God, you're gonna have to do it. Told my mom I'm done. Whatever. And so I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe it was a month, I don't know, it goes by. I say, call my mom just to check in, see how she's doing. And she goes, hey, Brian, do you know this girl named Christina Ewan? I said, yes, ma'am.
You've known her for a long time.
A long time. So Christina Ewan, back in Derby, Kansas, where my dad was. Said we grew up together. I was head over heels in love with her, all throughout middle school and high school. We went to 8th grade graduation dance together. After that was the first of many times I professed my undying love to her. And I always say that she gave me the Heisman. I was like, I just want to be friends. Just
friend zone.
Friends. And so I got friend zoned hardcore. And that went on literally from 8th grade to the beginning of 12th grade before I left Derby. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you laid out all my yearbooks from kindergarten to 12th grade and said you can pick one girl to marry, it's Christina every single time. She's like, oh, okay, well, so why? And she said, well, she wants to write you. Excuse me? I said, well, yeah, Christina wants to write you. I was like, does she know I'm in prison? Yeah, she knows you're in prison. Okay, well, that's...
Despite the picture on the Facebook page, I actually am in prison wearing greens right now.
Correct. And so that's it. So my mom's, catching the thing where Christina's thinking she's messaging me. So that's how that happened. So Christina is on Facebook, and Brian Dawson shows up as a suggested friend. And she's like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Brian in 10 years. Clicks, sends a message. And then my mom's like, actually, this isn't Brian. This is Brian's mom. He's in prison. To which most women say, oh, dear God, and would run.
Yeah,
but
unfriend.
Not Christina. And she said, well, I'd love to write him. And so again, I said, God, you're going to have to do it. And God did it, right? I didn't send her a friend request. We didn't reach out to her. She found me and reached out to me.
Yeah.
And my mom said, hey, this is what's going on. She said, I want to write him. So God did that. And so I got her address from my mom and wrote her the first letter, though. I said, look, I didn't get drunk and run somebody's dog over. Like, this isn't like some fluke thing. Like you hear about this weird guy that got thrown, like never did anything wrong.
And really in prison for reasons.
Yeah, I belong here. I earned it.
Like real prison reasons.
Correct. And so I said, but God has saved me and I am changed. And everybody in here says that, by the way, but like I'm an open book and I'm willing to prove it to you. And she writes me back. And again, in my mind, she was, the girl that she was in middle school and high school. I mean, she was just perfect, like in every way.
Conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a thankful Thursday. We're glad you're with us. Listen, we're about to bring somebody on the show. I've been a fan from a distance for quite a while. Former Congressman J.D. Hayworth was a 6-term congressman from Arizona, a nationally recognized conservative voice, y'all. I mean, literally, he's out there on everything from the economy to healthcare to government reform. He was a leading advocate for putting Americans, not special interests, in first place. Well, he's still doing that. He's also a veteran broadcaster, by the way. And since leaving Congress, he's still been active in public policy and all the things it takes, and still lives in Arizona with his sweet wife and 3 kids. And he's on the phone right now to talk to us about his work with a group called Pharmaceutical Reform Alliance. Congressman J.D. Hayworth, how you doing?
Well, Colonel and Senator Phil Williams, man, it's great to be with you. It just feels so right, Phil, to be here with you on the right side.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you very much. I think you're an OG right side ruffian. That's what we call our folks around here, right side.
Amen. Sign me up, brother. I'm a right side ruffian. You better believe it.
Well, listen, you've been like neck deep in this pharmaceutical issue. I just led off the show here talking about the disparity with what we pay and the exorbitant price increases and all of it, even by comparison to other countries. First of all, if you don't mind, before we jump into some facts and figures, what is the Pharmaceutical Reform Alliance? What are you guys, and how do you do your work?
Well, the Pharma Reform Alliance is a group that invited me to come along and give voice to their concerns. And in fact, for those listening to our conversation and for future reference for you too, Phil, the website is Pharma with a PH, pharmareformalliance.com. And they reached out to me because they said, well, JD, you've got a reputation for telling it like it is, from the border to government reform, and your seat on the Ways and Means Committee. You've been able to see what's been going on with prescription drugs. We'd like you to come along and set people straight on just how big pharma is. And we ought to call it gargantuan pharma, because its hands and tentacles and influence are just about everywhere.
Well, it is. I mean, it's amazing. Those tentacles keep on going when you start tracking them down. But let me ask you this. So this is a polarized political environment that we're in, right? But there are some issues that sort of transcend politics. This one, I think, does. And you said you got some polling to match that up. Give me your thoughts on that.
Phil, I'll be happy to do that. And let's understand, I was thinking about this whole polarization thing. Well, in a campaign year, you expect, contentious time, because different visions are displayed in the town square. But let me start with polling from 2024, before the big election. Kaiser Family Foundation found that 89% of Republicans, 84% of Democrats, and 78, heck, for all intents and purposes, almost 80% of independents agreed with the notion that big pharma is more focused on profits than on providing a way to public health.
Yeah.
And the American people get it instinctively. We understand it as conservatives. We're free marketeers, but we're not for deliberate market distortion. And we embrace the principle of profit. And obviously President Trump does. Heck, he's a billionaire, but he draws a distinction between profiting and profiteering. And it's hidden Americans in the pocketbook coming and going.
Yeah.
Because on average, we are paying more than 3 times what our neighbors in Canada, what our Western European allies, heck, the folks down under, and even in the Orient, in all the developed world, we are paying on average more than 3 times what prescription drug customers in those developed nations are paying. And rather than putting Americans first, Bill, sadly, Big Pharma puts Americans last.
I totally agree with that. And listen, those polling numbers you just gave a moment ago, with the percentages being that high, I sometimes joke when you see stuff like that you could poll, do you love your mama, and you wouldn't get numbers that high. So this is literally one of those topics that spans across the aisle, and everybody agrees this has got to be fixed. All right, so we're in a sort of a fix-it environment right now. I think we're seeing more opportunity before us to see this issue resolved than perhaps we've ever seen in our lifetimes. I know that Trump signed an executive order earlier this year in May to do most favored nation status on pricing. Do you know much about that, and is that going into effect?
Oh, sure. You know, and I mean, we could get into all the macro and microeconomic implications as an old Ways and Means member, because that's the committee of jurisdiction in the House. But basically, all anybody needs to know is it's a classic case of Donald Trump as disruptor in chief flipping the script. I mean, because when I was there, I was fighting against most favored nation status for communist China.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to have any of that. I was one of only a handful of Republicans who opposed it on the Ways and Means Committee when it came through. But what the president has done here, he has said simply, here's an idea. Let's make America the most favored nation. And let's challenge Big Pharma to drop prices in America, give us the same treatment that the Europeans and the Canadians and all the other folks in the developed world are getting. And that's really the intricacies. Now, something else important, Phil, and it goes back to these numbers just to fill in a couple of more blanks. We went out and did polling over the past month. And the thing is, these numbers hold up. It wasn't a one-off. With the midterms coming up next year, American voters, again, regardless of party, 86% say they want a member of Congress and they want their U.S. senators to stand up to Big Pharma. So again, this is across the board, and that's why we're seeing action. The other thing, and I was reflecting on this with a friend this morning, President Trump truly is a chief executive.
Yeah.
We see energy in the executive, the Make America Healthy Again alliance with, if you'd said 18 months ago, I think a lot of us wanted to see President Donald Trump, but I think a lot of us thought, wow, really? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services? Well, look at that I won't even call it bipartisan, I'll call it nonpartisanship. It bears it out. And with that report that came out earlier a couple of months ago, after the president set this up, he had the executive branch, both HHS and really the public health apparatus, but also the Federal Trade Commission, put Big Pharma on notice. Quit trying to delay the change in patents so that more generic drugs can come to market and lower the prices. But it is worth noting, even with the generics we have, we're still paying more than 3 times what our neighbors in the rest of the developed world are paying. So there's a lot going on here, but the important thing is President Trump, like Prime Minister Disraeli back in the 19th century, what was that he said in England? He said, I must follow the people. After all, am I not their leader? And Phil, this is a classic example where he's bringing people together and getting this done. Now, having said that, the report that came out, Phil, and you probably won't be surprised, but maybe with the numbers in terms of financial resources, over a 20-year period, roughly 20 years from 1999 through 2018, we saw the Make America Healthy Again report showed that Big Pharma has put more than $5 billion with a B in terms of going in to on Capitol Hill and going to the state capitals. Now, don't misunderstand. Everyone, including businesses, have the right to petition the government. But as Secretary Kennedy pointed out, Big Pharma's resources in Washington are such that there could be a personal Big Pharma lobbyist for all 435 members of the House, all 100 members of the U.S. Senate, and all of the justices on the United States Supreme Court. The other thing is, simultaneously during that period, Big Pharma devoted $6 billion or close to it to set up, quote, health issue advocacy groups that, guess what, really represented Big Pharma. So they've tried to set up this political infrastructure in Washington and in the state capitals. But again, Phil, the good news is the American people get it. President Trump wants to get something done. And the good news is, in terms of Congress, both U.S. senators and members of the House, my old committee, Ways and Means, there is legislation introduced to codify what President Trump is doing with his executive order and a lot more.
Well, that's going to be needed, because I think an executive order, we run the risk that it would wind up being either rescinded.
Bill, do I still have you?
Yeah, you're still there. Can you hear me all right now? JD,
Bill, did I lose you? I must have lost you.
No, gosh, are you kidding me? All right, well, JP, we got to figure out what just happened, but I can still hear him fine. I mean, I've got him on the air.
Something's up with the service we're using.
All right. Well, Congressman, we do still have you. We'll try to get you back on here momentarily. That was a great segment, though. I was hearing him fine. I assume that was transmitting. So as far as I know, yes, it was. Listen, JP, go ahead and take us to a break while you go ahead and reboot that thing, and let's see if we can get him back on here to wrap up. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
She was going to go on and be married to a doctor, and the 3,500 square foot house, the white picket fence, and 2.5 kids, and the minivan and the dog, like that's where she was in my mind. And that's not where she was. And she wrote me back and she said, Brian, I'm actually in Alabama. I got married and had a son, and my husband and I got divorced. And so she's living in Alabama with her son as a single mom. That's the letter that I got back. I'm like, holy cow. Well, in that letter, she's like, I just got saved 6 months ago. So I've been saved for 9. She'd been saved for 6. And so we just started writing back and forth about what God was doing in our lives, what the preacher was preaching on, whatever. And then she would send me Christian books, and we would read the book together, and then we'd write what we were like reading, and then we would send. It was a really interesting way to.
How long between letters?
It depends. Like you'd send it could be 5 days, it could be 2 weeks. Like the post office is, but it was sometimes, like if you sent it Monday, sometimes they got it Friday, but usually it'd be the following week.
Yeah,
it just depends. Yeah, and but it was interesting, and it's like we were like finishing each other's sentences like through written mail, which was really interesting. I thought that was pretty cool. And there was something else I wanted to say that had to do with the snail mail. Oh, I know what it was. So because she had a son, and we had kind of talked about, well, okay, so we've reached this point where it certainly seems like there's a spark that is here that didn't exist when we were kids, but my stock cannot get any lower. Okay. Like I don't have a lot to offer.
It's not like you're taking her to dinner tomorrow night.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And certainly not a steak dinner. And so I'm feeling like something is happening, but when I was like a football player that everyone liked, I couldn't get her, but here I am in prison. Like, how's this going to work? But I just said, okay, I'm just going to roll the dice. And I wrote her and told her how I felt. I said, I feel like God's doing something between us, sent it. And it took extra long that time.
What year are we in right now?
So this would have been 2011.
Okay.
December of 2011, I think. Yeah. No, December 2011 is when the first letter happened. Yeah, that's right. Maybe it was 2010. It might have been December of 2010. I got saved in December of 2010.
So you're
somewhere between 2010 and 2011, somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
Yep. When we first start writing, but then we write for about 6 months, and then I tell her, maybe it's 4 months, 5 months. I say, hey, this is how I feel. She writes me back. This was one of those ones, so it took a week for her to get the letter, probably a week for her to write her letter, and another week for me to get the letter. Like it was a long turnaround, and it probably was exacerbated by the fact that I'm sitting here with all my hopes and dreams wrapped up in what this letter is going to say when I get it, right? And they call my name at mail call. You've been in the military. You understand mail call. It's a fun time when they call your name. It's not as fun when they don't.
I would say.
Yeah, and they called my name, and I was like, ooh. And I saw it was from Christina, and I was kind of like, oh, God, And she said, Brian, I feel the exact same way. Whether you get out in Whether you get out in 10 years or 10 days, I'm going to be here waiting for you. Whether, I know God wants me to be with you. I'm just like, what? Unbelievable. And she is, and she was. And the funny story about the book she would send me. So after that letter, I don't know, 2 weeks goes by, and I get a book in the mail, and I open it up, and it's like a book on co-parenting for like how to be a stepdad. And my buddy
Holy cow.
My buddy Richie looks over and he says, "That looks pretty serious, man. You might be in for the long haul." That's commitment there.
You said unbelievable a minute ago. It actually is. It's so unbelievable it has to be true.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's just, and it's so funny. So I told you my dad's not a believer.
Yeah.
So here he is, his son, who was in the pit of a prison with no hope of ever getting out. Okay, not only is out now, but he's married and has a healthy family and is now the CEO of a multi-million-dollar media company, and on and on and on and on. Okay, and I'm like, Dad, how does that work without Jesus? And he says, "Well, son, you finally started doing all those things I told you to do."
Oh, well,
I said, "You're right."
Okay.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it, Dad. But I said, "Okay, explain Christina." He said, "Son, I can't explain that. I said,
I was going to say there were so many things. In fact, I was going to interject, but I didn't want to stop your recitation of the story because I didn't want to interrupt those facts. But
Yeah.
but there, like the big black guy who sat next to you the morning you got saved, his name was what?
Ramon.
So mine wasn't quite near as dramatic, but it was very similar. I mean, I was a messed up kid, but we started going to church because I live with my dad now.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had what I called the thundering velvet hand. I mean, my dad was 6'4". He was the Army lieutenant colonel. He was the Vietnam vet. And if he said do, you just did.
Yeah.
He also was quick to tell me he loved me, had a different level of discipline. We had a household, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to church, have no idea who this Jesus guy is, but I'm sitting there one night on a retreat, and this And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Going right back to the phones. For whatever reason, we had a glitch there on the phone system, but we got him back. So former Congressman J.D. Hayworth, I just want to wrap up with you here just for a minute, sir. We got about 2.5-3 minutes to go. But listen, in this entire thing about reforming the cost of pharmaceuticals, which I think everybody can agree with, and your polling indicates that everybody can agree with it. I got to ask you, one of the arguments that I keep hearing from Big Pharma is that, well, Americans bear the cost because of all the research dollars that we put into it, so we have to recoup those. But how does that fit into the discussion?
Well, when you take a closer look, you say at first glance, well, yeah, okay, research and development. But understand this, Big Pharma's profits, they're more than twice, a little bit more than twice what the average is of the companies on the S&P 500. A big chunk of change every year. But heretofore, a study indicates they've only put 17% of their money into research and development. Guess who's picked up the big chunk of the rest of it?
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. American taxpayer,
That's
you
right.
and me.
Yeah.
So you got to understand that, yeah, they do some, but we're getting it coming and going. That's why Americans instinctively understand this, Phil, and nobody's against profit, but profiteering is the problem. The other thing, I'm not against advertising. Heck, you and I are broadcasters, but understand this, only 2 nations in the free world allow over-the-air ads for pharmaceuticals, the U.S. and New Zealand.
Wow.
And understand when it comes to direct-to-consumer advertising and marketing, Big Pharma in recent years has spent $36 billion with a B.
Holy cow.
Which would indicate they've probably done more spending on that than any research and development they claim to be doing.
Yeah.
So we're getting hit by both ends, and people need to understand that. And that's why the American people are rising up on a nonpartisan basis. And it's why it's so good that President Trump and people in the House and Senate are ready to get something done on this.
Well, I think it's high time. And you know what's amazing is I did not realize the disparity between us and other, modernized nations until this became an issue in the Trump campaign. I had never.
And Phil, I apologize again. I have lost your audio.
Are you kidding me?
I don't know what's wrong.
I hear him just fine.
But again, if people have questions,
listen, I apologize to the audience.
the website is
talking to him, he's talking to me, and everything's fine. For some reason, he can't hear that we're connected. So we're going to figure this phone system out. But in the meantime, just know this: we're going to wind up jumping to a break in about 3 minutes, and I'll apologize to Congressman J.D. Hayworth. Either way, I think you guys got to hear him, and so that should be good. Let me get a few text messages to clean this up real quick. Merle from Hartselle checks in. He says, good afternoon, Phil. On the price of drugs, I have a couple of friends on fixed incomes that take 2 cruises a year to Mexico just to get their prescriptions filled. Wow. He said they save more than enough money to take week-long cruises and still save more money than buying their drugs here in the U.S. That's crazy. That is crazy. Take a cruise to Mexico so you can buy your medications. That is absolutely crazy. Robert from Athens says, Dear Colonel Phil, whenever Democrats say, quote, we're negotiating with an industry, it means they're threatening government action to extort massive campaign contributions. He said it's cheaper to give the donkey party millions than to lose $1 billion in unfair profits. Trump is hated because he actually cares about the American people instead of naked political power. Robert from Athens. Robert, laying it down strong, man. Appreciate you. Lisa from Huntsville. I'm still puzzled, she says, at the exorbitant cost of thyroid medication. My daughter and I both take Synthroid with the same dosage. My 90-day supply through our insurance cost me anywhere from $12.50 to $20 per refill. Hers costs $65 for a 30-day supply. I got nothing, man. I got no way of saying it. It's going to depend on your insurance. What winds up happening there very likely is whichever one of you has a different insurance, it has a different provider rate. And so they do a reimbursement rate, I'm sorry. And so the reimbursement rates per insurance, depending on whether you're not on like Medicaid, Medicare, or a Blue Cross policy or something like that, they literally have different reimbursement rates. Now, I do know some pharmacists that wind up losing money on certain drugs. It's maddening. I mean, they literally have some drugs they have to carry in order to qualify for the ability to do services, but they lose money because it costs them so much to get it in, and then they get a lower reimbursement rate. It's just, the system is broken and it's got to get fixed. All right, all said and done, you guys, this is an issue that I think is absolutely bipartisan. I mean, the polling that J.D. Hayworth just gave us was clearly indicating it didn't matter whether you were a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, that well up to 80+% of all those polled said, we got to see some change here. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that any other president would have had the strength of will or the presence of mind or the ability to politically push like President Trump on this particular issue. No, I mean, certainly not in the Democrat Party, and really, to be honest with you, not any of the prior Republican presidents. More to come. In the meantime, coming up next, we're doing a round of Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Sitting next to me, I'm in 7th grade, and the senior sitting next to me named Mitch Schaefer, I still remember him, and I just, sort of like you, they had an invitation. I had no idea what was going on, but it felt like something I needed to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so I actually looked at Mitch, kind of like you looked at Ramon, and I said, what's going on right now? What should I do? What do you think? And he said, I think if this is something that you're feeling right now, you need to go down there. And I've wondered many times, what would have happened if I hadn't sat by Mitch?
Yeah. It's like God knows what he's doing.
No way of knowing.
Yeah.
Because in my book, at that point, as a 7th grader, I'm sitting next to a senior in high school. It's like God, Jesus, Mitch. I mean, that's kind of the order of precedence here.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to number 3 in line. And so I asked him, had I been sitting with one of my 7th grade knucklehead friends, what would have happened? I have no idea. If you hadn't been sitting next to Ramon, would you have asked the question of the next guy? I don't know. No way of knowing, but God puts people in your life, in your path, just the right time. Your mom did a Facebook page of all things, which I'm sure was a thing. Maybe that was something you learned that other people were doing for but the fact that she did it, and then Christina, who, by the way, you're married to, and by the way, you have 7 kids.
Correct.
You're not just co-parenting your stepson, you're co-parenting all of your kids.
Yeah.
I've met your stepson. He's a cool kid.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right, we gotta flash forward a little bit here, just for essence of time. But you did get out, and you went to a halfway house, if I recall.
Yeah, it was an intense behavior modification program, most intense of its kind in Denver, Colorado, called Pier 1.
Yeah.
But it functioned as a halfway house.
Pier, was it?
Pier, P-E-E-R,
Okay.
1, the number 1.
All right.
Not the furniture store. Different.
No.
Yeah.
You're not buying like beanbag chairs there and stuff like that. All right.
No.
Yeah, I remember hearing you say, like you said a moment ago, that this was the most intense place you could go, that a lot of people didn't want to go there, but you did.
Mm-hmm.
But it also expedited opportunities for you to move forward, right?
Yeah.
And then you asked Christina to marry you, like on the porch of the halfway house.
Yeah, with this ring.
That's super romantic, dude.
Yeah, I'm a hopeless romantic. What can I say? But yeah. So the question that everyone's going to ask at this point in the podcast is, how long were you in? 5 years, 2 months, on a 16-year sentence. 5 years, 2 months. I was eligible to put in for a halfway house. Boom.
Right.
I never would have got accepted to a halfway house with my crime and criminal history and how much time I had, except that I put in for this extremely intense behavior modification program, and they're like, "You want to go there?"
Would you have gotten it if you'd had that crime of violence attached to it?
It would have been 5 years, 6 years later. So if I would have got the 15 with the crime of violence, which was what I ended up negotiating on, I probably would have done 8 or 9 years before I could have went to Pier 1.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. So it would have been about twice as much time.
Everything stacked up.
Yep.
All
and
right.
so 5 years, 2 months, the way that it works in the Colorado prison system with their time is on a 16-year sentence, they cut it to 8, and that's your parole eligibility date. So in 8 years on a 16, you're eligible for parole. And then on a nonviolent crime, which is why that sentence enhancer mattered, 19 months prior to your parole eligibility date, you're it's called community eligibility, which is to a halfway house. So 8 years, then 19 months before that, halfway house, and then that actually comes towards you with earn time. So on a 16-year sentence at 5 years and 2 months, that's your first eligibility to get out.
So I mean, listen, I know that from what you said, Pier 1 is a serious intensive, but you're in a halfway house compared to being in a prison. So did it feel like a vacation almost?
No, prison's way better.
Really?
Yeah, prison is a vacation.
No
Like,
kidding.
and again, like, I mean, it's just a bit like saying prison's a vacation. It's not a good one. But from a standpoint of like, as a man now who has, a wife and children, and runs a company and has to make payroll and like all these type of things, like, you don't have that in prison, right? So it's different. It's like, yeah, you could get stabbed. That's not great. But like, if you know what you're doing, you're probably not going to. I mean, you can step on a landmine, but if you know your way around, you kind of learn how to do time. You can avoid the pitfalls and stuff like that. There's no responsibility, right? And so you're not burdening or shouldering any responsibility.
Wow.
Well, what makes a man what he is the weight that he carries on his shoulders. That's how you develop gravitas and become a man. And so I was never going to become a man in there. I did learn a lot. It did shape and mold, and I had to deal with things or whatever.
Conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, to say, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, watching us on places like Rumble, X, YouTube, our website, rightsidemedia.org. And thank you very much for the podcasters as well who catch us after the fact. All the bottom line is here that I want to say how much we appreciate this audience, no matter which way you find the show. We love you. We appreciate you. You're the reason why we do what we do. All right. It is Thankful Thursday. I am thankful for the crew that helps make all this happen. And there's some people that are just not always in the studio, but they mean a lot to us, and they provide occasional commentary. And those people are, in this case, joining us right now for a segment we do every Thursday. So sitting right here in studio with me, the silky smooth technological whiz, former Navy guy, Butters, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Thankful Thursday. Thankful for you.
I'm very thankful to be here.
Outstanding. Looking northward, the diva of conservative dialogue would be right there on the line with us, Lee from Huntsville. Hello, Leester. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Well, we're glad you're with us. We're thankful for you too. So that means I got a quorum. Hit me some whoop-whoops on Butters and Lee. All right, you guys, y'all know the deal. I ask questions the first round. You ask questions on the second round. So here's my first question. I mean, I hate to even talk about the midterms already, but here we are. It's politics. It's what we do. But next year is going to be the midterms, and the Dems are already like, oh, we're going to get you then, and your little dog too. I mean, it's going to be, game on. So my question for you is there any single issue that you can see right now, any issue, that Dems can use to beat up on Republicans in the midterms? Like something that's happening, you're like, oh, God, that's going to hurt later. Anything that will serve as a wedge or an anchor, giving Democrats a boost next year in the midterms. What do you think, Lee, you first?
Well, as it sits right now, I think they'll try to use the Epstein thing because I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, well, he's in there. That's why he won't release it, which is ridiculous because they would have released it long ago if that was true.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they'll still try and use that. I think they're going to try and use the flooding in Texas to say somehow Trump, conjured up clouds and caused the flood and then didn't, made sure they didn't have any warning and all this kind of mess, which none of the cuts he made to NOAA haven't even gone into effect yet. So it's all a ridiculous argument, but they count on their own constituents to not understand the difference and to just say, oh, orange man bad. Yes. I mean, I think they do. So I believe they could probably use both of those and, we'll see what the economy does and tariffs, if it doesn't improve drastically, they could also, put that in there.
Okay. So economy, tariffs, maybe. I think those are going to play out. And right now,
yeah.
All right. And then you said maybe Epstein and maybe Texas. All right. So Butterman, is there anything out there that you see, or do you disagree for that matter, with the mighty Lee from Huntsville?
Well, so I think I'm going to answer your question, but maybe not completely directly.
Geez.
I think Republicans have got to understand, we're not dealing with Republicans now as we're talking about midterms and what's going on. It's not like you're talking to Republicans, and at the same time, Democrats, I don't know who they're talking to, but they're way off. So I think there's a lot of people that used to be Democrats or certainly were centrist. And it's not necessarily, it's not as straightforward. And I think it's gonna be really interesting to figure out the messaging of all of this kind of stuff, because I think you're going to see a lot of, they're talking about the exact same thing, only the Democrats are talking to one people that see it completely different than the folks that might go vote for Republicans. So,
so what you're describing,
all those issues, I think are good. I think they're going to both get spun into multiple different ways. So
all those issues she named,
yeah, all the stuff.
Yeah.
But this Epstein stuff is a good example of kind of shooting yourself in the foot, in my opinion.
Agreed.
From the Republican side of things, and because again, it's not about the Republicans. The diehard Republicans are going to vote Republican. It's all the folks that came over that helped push the needle.
I think that on the Epstein thing, and I'm not talking about my feelings of the issue. I'm talking about just what I think is going to wind up happening. I think that on the Epstein thing, that unless something new happens, I think that a year and a half from now, when they actually go to vote in the actual general election, that the Epstein thing will very likely have faded, and some of the other agenda items of the administration are going to be the things that we're going to be running on or running against. Now, what I do believe is going to happen is they'll probably use some Republicans like Tucker Carlson or other who have, had some inflammatory comment to say about the Epstein. I think they'll use those sound bites against us as, look, other Republicans even said so. I think that'll happen. Absolutely. I just don't know that a year and a half from now, it's still going to resonate as deeply with the broad base. There will always be niche voters who are their single issue voters and they only vote on the one thing. But the broad based voters, I don't know that's going to stand up yet, unless, like I said, something new and drastic happens, like the black book materializes, whatever. All right. Crazy cool. All right, let me ask you this, though. Let me switch gears. So talking about boat anchors on a party, talking about things that can drag a party down in a broad sense. My question for you is, does Mamdani matter? Does Mamdani matter in the big picture? Because right now he's running to be mayor of New York City, but New York City is like a nation unto itself in some ways. It's like a state by itself. If Mamdani gets elected as a socialist / communist who has been anti-Semitic and all these, is that going to wind up hurting Democrats in, say, I don't know, Iowa or in Maine or in Alabama? Is Mamdani going to be an anchor on the Democrat Party? You first this time, Butterman.
I think Mamdani ought to be a giant warning and a shining example of things are different. Again, who are they marketing themselves? Who are they trying to pitch the Democrat? I mean, it sure seems like they're like all in and going further and further to wherever it is that they're going to. And there's a whole bunch of people that clearly see the world just completely differently than most of us think. The whole dynamic in New York has changed, right? You got a huge bunch of like Jews that made a bunch of money and left, and who's left to vote is some crazy people apparently in New York City. And I think that, so how does that translate to other parts of it's, well, has this happened in other places? Because it's just, wow. Like, cause everybody would sit back and go, surely that's not going to happen. Every sane person in America would go, how on earth? But it did. And I think that that everybody needs to be reviewing. Okay, let's not take anything for granted.
I'm still trying to get past the rich Jews left and left the crazy people. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean the voter demographic that you had in New York City.
Okay,
you know, you had people with money that actually weighed in and voted, and a lot of those people have gone. Like they made it, and they decided this is not where, you know, and so they're not there to be voters. I'm just saying, Republicans need to not sit back and go, we won, and like, we're just getting started with this fight. And I think Mamdani is a shining example of that.
Okay. All right. Leister, what do you think? Mamdani, does he matter? Is he going to be an impact to Democrats in other places? What's your thought?
He matters. He galvanizes that AOC wing of the party, which is pushing and pushing and pushing to become a larger part, a controlling part of the party. And when that happens, they will quickly go down the rabbit hole of socialism and communism. It will happen very, very quickly. So I think he will be used as a cudgel to hit Democrats over the head everywhere outside of New York. And I think for the next presidential election, if he gets elected, which I don't know if it's a guarantee that he will, but if he gets elected, I think that some of the ridiculousness that he's bringing, you know, free everything, here's your free stuff, which is essentially what he's offering to everyone.
Yeah.
Low rent, free food, or, you know, could government control this and that and the other. When they finally realize that that's not actually going to work, then that can also be used as a, you know, we can hit them all over the head with like, see, you want socialism, socialism doesn't work. So I think he'll be important in that sense. Nationwide, I don't know how many, I think outside of the left and the right coast, I don't know how many even Democrats truly want this sort of socialist intrusion into their party. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I would say that the broader stalwart Democrats, the ones who've been around for a while, especially the establishment Democrats, are having a freak out mode because they realize that every single campaign mailer for dog catcher anywhere in America is going to have a picture of Mamdani on it. And rightfully, and they're earning that because they're earning it not just because it's happening in one place, but they're earning it because, you mentioned it, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, all of the freak show people in the Democrat Party are rallying to his support and making it like he's a celebrity candidate. And the guy's like, who is this guy? You know, everybody's like, Mamdani, what? But yeah, I think it's going to be a boat anchor. I can remember somebody running for public service commission in Alabama and saying how they were going to help Trump. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just using his name because you're going to see Mamdani's picture on everything, I think, in if he wins the election.
I will say on the greater discussion of the midterms, I think it'll go either we got a lot of questions of exactly where we sit as a country, or it will be, basically this past election over again, and the numbers will hold true. And we're like, no, about 75% of the country really actually is like, you guys are nuts. So fortunately, the Democrats have just kept, no, we just messaged wrong. Our thoughts aren't wrong. We messaged wrong.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
all it was.
So if that holds out to be true, now, obviously, if the economy goes nuts, there's no telling what could happen. But I think either we go, yep, no, we're right. Like, Democrats, y'all really need to, listen to people.
Well, we'll wait and see. But right now, I mean, there he is. The Democrats are, I'm talking CNN, they're saying Democrats are praising Zoran Mondani after his Capitol Hill meeting. Okay. So he's up on Capitol Hill looking for more Democrats to back him. All right, you guys, that's round one. Appreciate you. Good Lord. Appreciate you. We'll go ahead and take a break. Come right back. Round two, Butters and Lee. We flipped the script. They asked me questions. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Good. I think it was good that I went there because it helped me become who I am. But my goodness, when I first started being a parent and being a husband and having to work and pay bills.
Wow, yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, send me back to prison. This is insane. Real life is way harder than anything. Like, that's what no one ever tells you. Like, it feels like there should be a guy in high school who just sits you down and says, life is flipping hard. It's really hard. Real life is really hard. No one ever tells you. They just make it like it's not. So it's very bizarre. So
my daughter calls it adulting.
Adulting, correct.
Remember one time she called me because this adulting thing sucks.
It does. That's why so many people aren't doing it anymore.
All right. Okay, so how long were you in the halfway house? When were you actually free?
2.5 years in the halfway house.
Wow, 2.5 years.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So in the intense behavior modification program, I'm there for the first 6 months. You're in phase one. You're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to go anywhere. You're not allowed to really do anything. You can't write. I couldn't write Christina, but she could write me, and she wrote me a letter a week for 26 weeks. Then I get to phase two. Phase two, you're allowed to get a job, but you can't go out on visits. So you can go to work. And so I ended up getting a job at a tax resolution firm doing sales. Imagine that. But I mean, there's so many stories, and I know we got time. But so I get to the point where there, but then about 10 months in, I'm eligible to now go out into the community and go on visits and go see my family and stuff. And Christina flew out.
Are you in Colorado Springs?
This is Denver.
Oh, it's Denver. Okay.
This is Denver. And my grandma had moved to Denver while I was in prison.
Oh, wow.
And now she's back in Colorado Springs. But it's just like another one of those God things. Like, she ended up being in Denver where I was, so it ended up working out. So Christina comes to see me, and we plan to get married the next day. So, right, we were wasting no time. The very first visit, boom, we're getting married. So she comes to see me on the front porch. So I'm going to go see her Saturday and Sunday. But she comes by on Friday, and they let her come see me on the front porch of the drug rehab building there. And that's when I got down on my knee and used this ring. There's a story behind that, to ask her to marry me. And for a long time, she had this ring on a necklace that she wore. But I got into a bad situation on the Coosa River kayaking one time, and my wedding band disappeared. And so now I wear this $4 ring that I got, and the reason I got it when I was in the halfway house, Christina's in Alabama. We're 1,500 miles away from one another. Yeah. And I'm a good looking guy, Phil. I don't know if you know that. I'm a good looking guy, and so I had to just keep these women off of me. And I said, you know what I need? I need a ring to make it look like I'm married. That was my theory. And so I got it, and but I wanted. We're
gonna let that whole story run.
Yeah. So I got this ring, and it was like $40, and I was like, man, I really wish I had that ring, but it says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And I really wanted that ring. And I went back a couple weeks later, and they put it on sale for $4. Well, in the program, you can't keep more than $20 on you at any given time. So I couldn't even save up and get the ring if I wanted to. Well, I go back, and there it is. It was in like a Christian bookstore. I don't know, it was like you have Hobby Lobby, and then right next to Hobby Lobby, they have these Christian bookstores. Anyway, went in there and got it for $4. And that was the one that $4. Okay. And this is what I proposed to Christina with, and then now it's the ring that I wear. It's my one of my favorite scriptures. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Joshua
Most
24:15.
important. That's it. Most important.
We got that engraved in the sidewalk in front of our house.
Amen.
Dude, I mean, we could stop right now, and that's enough of a story. But there's a little more story.
There's a lot. Quite a bit. We're good on time.
Yeah, we're good. You're going to stay right there till we finish.
Okay.
All right. So, what'd you do for work? You get out of the halfway house. You and Christina are now married. Did you go straight into sales? Because I know you met a guy named Lee Habib at some point. You're doing radio, and that's where you were coming out of that when I met you.
Sure.
But what were you doing the whole time between?
Yeah. So in Colorado, was doing tax resolution sales, going to church, met a guy who was in media at church that mentored me. His name's Tim Moranville and his wife, Beth. Met them at church, and they just thought the world of me and wanted to help me. And just another person God put in my life that was, pivotal. And he was a big media executive at Westwood One and Cumulus. Okay. And he ends up taking another job because he wants to use his gifts to do something meaningful. And he thinks the opportunity to go to this conservative Christian network called USA Radio Networks to help revive it. Back in the 80s under Marlon Maddox, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like Point of View, Kirby, whatever the guy's name was, like 1819 Radio News. It was huge. Well, it kind of died, and there were some guys that were trying to resurrect it. And so they hired Tim, we call him Doc Moranville, hired him to help resurrect it. And he asked me when I moved to Alabama, he said, "Do you have a job when you get to Alabama?" I said, "Well, not when I'm really looking."
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. All right, we're back around two of Butters and Lee. This is the part where they flip the script and ask me questions. So I'm going to go ahead and say, Lee, you first. What do you got?
So Tuesday was the Huntsville-Madison County Public Library Board meeting.
Yay.
And yeah, so exciting, right? Not usually a point of controversy, but there was quite the number of, blue, purple hair, nose ring aficionados at the meeting who were very loud, booed and said things during when people were talking, which is very unusual. And
at a library board meeting. I mean, this is where they have to be shushed, because in libraries you have to get shushed.
Exactly. And then at the end, a guy led a chant saying the F word. So nothing was said to them or done to them, mind you. And at the very end, one of the ladies that had spoken, a man came up who lives as a woman, transgender man, however you put it, came up and spit on her for her opinion. And I wanted to ask you, do you think we've gone around the bend? Is decorum just gone when this happens at a library meeting? And do you think we can get it back?
First of all, yes. I think we've gone around the bend with some people. Now, I would say that the ardent left has lost their minds. And what you just described was not what I would call protest. What you described was mental illness, a lot of it. Not just the transgender piece, but like, the nose ring F-bomb shouters where they have zero, they have zero couth, but they have zero ability to recognize their own inability to be socially acceptable. Either that or they don't care because they're sociopathic. So those folks are literally, they're struggling with life in general. I guarantee you they're all struggling with life in some sort of way, but they're foisting it upon everybody else. Now, having said that, it's also a leadership issue. I don't know who was running that board meeting, but they should have had more security there. They should have taken some steps to shut the microphone off. They should have asked for people to get themselves under control or set the ground rules up front or ask them to leave if they didn't. And so if that's the way it's going to be run in a library board meeting, I would say that, first of all, the people who run library board meetings are probably not used to having to step out and do that kind of thing. But they better get their act together and realize if you're going to be in charge of anything, if you're going to be in charge of a lemonade stand on the street corner with kids, you still got to have rules and you got to take care of things and you can't let it get out of hand. Wow.
Yeah, can I just ask, did anyone deck said person that spit on people?
No, but they're gonna, the charges were filed.
Okay, because then I would say we still have decorum then, that nobody, because that certainly seems like it would have been appropriate.
After the fact decorum of filing charges because of something somebody did when they weren't stopped is not the same thing as having decorum when they needed it. Decorum because you got caught is not the same as decorum that prevented you from doing
No,
it.
I'm just saying that the adults in the room had some had some decorum because they didn't smack them around. So
I see. Oh, okay. Well, there's that. You know what? There's a time and a place, and I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to promote violence or whatever else. But if you get spit on, I was going to say it's game on at that point.
Yeah.
So, just saying. Wow. Okay, that one got me fired up. Library boards. Who figured? All right. Pray tell, what less controversial thing do you have?
Let's take it down a notch and talk about Gavin Newsom.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So I don't know if you've watched Sean Ryan had Gavin on, and
quite the spectacle. 4 hours.
I will say good on him for the effort. I kind of am in the crowd that got through about 12 to 22 minutes somewhere in there, and finally was like, I just can't listen anymore. But kind of back to the first half, your questions. I can see he's going to resonate. Like, he's a slick talker, and a lot of people won't do any homework. What are your thoughts on Gavin and this game that he seems to be playing?
I think what will happen is there's a lot of Democrats who are put off by him, but he's not Trump. There's a lot of Democrats who are put off by him, but he's got name ID and they don't know what else to do. There's a lot of Democrats who are put off by him, and they'll just take it because they got to find somebody who they think can speak to people and make sense and not be Jasmine Crockett. So I think not all is going for him. But then here's the other piece. I mean, the whole interview with Sean Ryan, and I've only seen snippets of it, so I'm not going to try to portray myself as sitting through. It's like 4 hours long.
Yeah,
it was an epic long. But War and Peace, man. But he sat like a girl trying to talk like a guy. I mean, he has this effeminate characteristic about him that never goes away, and yet he's overdoing it with the F-bomb and the tough guy talk. And I love the Second Amendment. And don't you know these things? And listen, man, I got to tell you that President Trump calls me mean names. And I'm like, dude, you know what? If you quit trying to be the guy and just be the guy, you'd be all right. Like I'll never forget. Remember the time when he was a debate with it was with Ron DeSantis. Remember that? Out of the blue, these two governors Newsom challenged him to a debate, and DeSantis said okay. And so last year they did a televised debate, and Newsom got his backside handed to him. It was unbelievable because he thought he'd come in and be the tough schmarmy guy, and he had nothing. So Democrats got their hands full with him. Hey, I love you both. That's it. Butters and Lee, I hear the music playing. Leister, thank you so much. Butters, good to see you in the studio. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
I'm open to whatever. And he says, great. You're going to be an affiliate relations manager at USA Radio Networks. I said, man, that's amazing, Tim. What is an affiliate relations manager and what is a radio network? I have no idea what you're talking about. And he says, it's sales. You'll be fine. I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. And so essentially what my job was to take a show like Rightside Radio, and you're on in Huntsville. It would be my job to call a station in Atlanta, call a station in Cincinnati, call a station wherever, and say, hey, you've got this 3-hour time slot where you've got this person who sucks. You need to replace this person who sucks with Phil who doesn't suck, right? Like that would be, I'm oversimplifying to make the point, but that's what it is. It's distribution sales.
Right
yeah,
now.
That's right.
Okay.
Use that one. You'll get on all
Phil
the stations if you
doesn't
use
suck,
that. That's
so
right.
That's all right. Good.
Correct. There you go. But I was never really good in the beginning. Steve Dace was the first person I ever worked with, by the way. And he was syndicated by USA Radio Networks. Yep. I wasn't great at getting 3-hour radio shows put in place of other 3-hour radio shows. They had a news segment that was really, really good. It was USA Radio News, and it was like when you're going down the road here, and you hear the news, right? Well, it would, USA Radio News. Did I say 1819 Radio News?
You did a minute ago.
Okay, it's USA Radio News.
Stop. Yeah, I knew where you were going.
Okay, USA Radio News. So USA Radio News. But the problem was they were so, you get so myopic and rut viewed into what you're doing and what you've always done. This is how we do it because we've always done it this way. And I'm the, as the military calls an FNG, freaking new guy, okay? I don't know those rules. I'm not in those ruts. And I'm just looking at this and I'm looking at this and I'm like, why aren't you doing this? And so they had a 5-minute newscast was all they had a 2-minute, a 3-minute, and a 5-minute. But the only thing they focused on was the 5-minute, and they marketed the 5-minute newscast that was produced on a Casio keyboard in the 80s to AM news talk stations. And that was what they did, and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't growing. And so I'm driving around Alabama listening to country western music because that's kind of my thing, and I would hear CBS News, ABC News, and I'm like, surely these God-fearing rednecks here in Alabama listening to Hank don't want to get their news from flipping ABC or CBS. So I went back to the team and I said, man, what if we make this sound better, which they were already wanting to do, and I used the 2-minute version, and I went after FM music stations. And everyone's like, man, you are stupid. That's never going to work. And, thanks again. I'm like, God, you guys are so encouraging. I really appreciate it. But I said, humor me. They said, no one's going to drop CBS News and ABC News for USA Radio News. I said, I think they will. I think the problem is that bad. And so I got on MailChimp and taught myself email marketing, and I had all the contact for all the decision makers all across the country. But I specifically went Bible Belt, country music, classic rock, found those stations, marketed the 2-minute news talk.
So you're making this up as you go along?
Yes.
All right. This is not like you picked up somebody's thing and ran with it. This is you created
this is all
a thing.
experimental on my part.
All right.
Taught myself how to do email marketing. Yeah, this was a strategy. And so I sent it out, and MailChimp or email marketing, whatever it is, it tells you, so-and-so in, Missouri opened this 3 times, so-and-so in Alabama opened it 7 times. Okay, that guy's interested. So you got 1,500 people you could reach out to, but when you send out the email and someone opens it 5 times, you're like, well, that guy's interested. So you call him and you say, hey, man, how do you like your news? And they're like, well, we hate it. Like, oh, man, that's terrible. I mean, CBS, like, what tell me about it. He goes, well, we like being the CBS affiliate and everything, but at the end of the day, I got 15 angry rednecks calling me I got liberal trash pumping out of my airwaves, and I can't take it anymore. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's horrible. I think I can help. Take a listen. Well, I already listened to it. And he goes, what does it take to sign up? I'm like, just sign the contract and we can start tomorrow.
I have more than once been doing my radio show and had a listener text in and say, you just said something and the news came on and controverted it.
Yeah.
It's like,
we need to get 1819 radio news on WVNN.
Probably do.
Talk 99.5 carries it. Blue Water carries it. Sean Sullivan carries it.
Why are we not?
Yeah, I don't know. Dale, I know you're watching. So, anywho, so yeah, that was my big launch into media.
Yeah.
Is I had this idea, I executed it, it exploded, and again, like it's like me, I. That's not what you need to hear. God, and I'm not saying like God came down and like split the, but like I stumbled into it. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was like, maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that, and it's like
you're
God
probably
just,
better off not knowing what you were doing.
Correct, exactly, and God just continued, and like some of the first deals that came in, they were huge stations I had no business talking to, and when I signed it, the network was like, I can't pay you commission on that. It was based off AQH, average quarter hour audience, and I just got a station. I was getting paid $1 per point, and we're pulling in like stations with 200 and 300 AQH. So they're like, here's $200, here's $300, whatever. I had a low salary, brought in one that had 14,500 AQH. And they're like, what do we do with that? I'm like, that's what you do with it. Anyway, so that happens. So now my name gets out into the industry. I'm sitting there at my campus, another God thing. My phone rings and it's a 601 number from Oxford, Mississippi. Who in Mississippi? But maybe it's a radio station that wants our news. So I answer it. Hello. He goes, hey, Brian, this is Lee. That's not the best Lee impression. He's from New Jersey. He's a Lebanese guy from New Jersey. I don't know how to do the impression. But Brian, this is Lee, not Habib. He says, this is Lee, as though I'm just going to know that that's who that is, right? But interestingly enough, I thought about it, and I said, Oxford, Mississippi, Lee, and it just hit. And I said, oh, my gosh, this is Lee Habib. And so Lee is the guy who created Laura Ingram's radio show back in 2001.
Right. Yeah.
He's the vice president of content at Salem. He oversees, he oversaw who is Bill Bennett, Dennis Prager, Hugh Hewitt, Michael Medved, Eric Metaxas, Larry Elder. Okay, he oversees all of that for Salem. He's the vice president of content there. And so he's wildly successful. Everything he's ever touched turns to gold, okay? And he had a new project called Our American Stories.
Right.
And so he calls me, and he's like, hey, this is Lee. I want you to come work for me. That's an interesting phone call. And I said, all I'm thinking about is all my felonies. And I'm like, Lee, I'd like to come talk to you and hear more about your vision. So I go to Oxford, and he's like, you can stay with me. And so he's got this mansion with a guest house, and I go stay in his guest house. And we get to know each other, and I hear his vision, and I'm blown away by it. I'm like, I have to be a part of this, but there's no way he's going to hire me with all these felonies. So we sit down in a little cafeteria and a diner in Oxford, Mississippi, and I share him the testimony I've just shared with you guys. And him and his wife have tears coming down their eyes. He said, you're the exact person I want working for me. And that was it. And so I don't know, again, total God thing, where the audacity to say this, confidence, whatever you want to call it, he said, I want you to grow my show. And I said, Lee, I don't want to grow people's radio products for the rest of my life. I want to learn the industry. So I'll make you a deal. I will grow your show, but I want you to teach me everything you know about the media industry, every nook and cranny.
Well, welcome to hour number 3. Hey, text me. Tell me what you're thinking about the stuff we talked about so far. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Yep, there it is. That's the number. Jeff from Indiana says, hey, Phil, what I think are going to happen to worldwide pharmaceuticals is that China, which already steals our patents and probably manufactures them as well, they will manufacture the drugs there, sell them overseas buyers, a cheaper rate, knocking the U.S. pharmas right out of the company, out of the money. Maybe. And then again, Trump may have tariffs on that prevents that from happening. We'll have to wait and see. Adam from Athens, talking about that library board thing that we just heard from Leon a minute ago, says, the person who spit on me better be ready to tote an old-fashioned whooping. I hear you. I feel it. It's real. All right, text it in, 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number. Let me jump on some military mindedness. I'm going to switch gears right now. All right, you guys know this show loves the military. JP and I both, our families are super steeped. Well, of course, we're in the same family, but you know what I'm saying? Super steeped in the military. His grandfather on his mom's side, my dad, myself, generations of our family, my son, all active duty. I mean, guys who have served, and it's just a huge piece of our life. It's also a huge piece of respect on the show. I mean, this is a military-minded show. I love the fact that veterans know that we can speak the language here. And I'll distinctly remember being on the air when the news broke about the debacle pullout from Afghanistan, and how many of y'all just hung on this show to talk about it, because it's almost like we needed to have a place to go where somebody understood. And I love that, and I get that, and I'm honored by that. And I think that's part of what this show provides, is a platform where people who are military minded, whether you have served yourself or have family who's serving, or you work in the defense industry or as a GS civilian, doesn't matter, all those different pieces, or you're a green suiter yourself right now, because we've got a bunch of y'all in the audience, I know. The reality is this is a show that is military minded, and we can speak the language. Now, that being said, I got a whole dipper here called military minded, and I got to start off with, to me, and by the way, I know, before you text in, I know that the Coast Guard is technically a part of the Department of Homeland Security, but I believe they are like a quasi-military branch all on their own. And so I brought this one in first. Why? Because I wanted to. That's why. Task and Purpose has an article, Dateline, 5 days ago, actually. You remember the big floods in Texas. You remember the Coast Guard rescue swimmer, Petty Officer 3rd Class Scott Ruska. The guy became a national hero because he rescued something like 165 to 200 people himself. He got on the ground and he set up triage on the scene, and he began to bring in aircraft to lift people out, treat wounds, and take care of people. And he was the only guy on the ground to be able to do it. And it was an amazing event. Well, he and his team were just awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and or the Air Medal. It's an amazing piece of Coast Guardsmen doing their jobs in such an amazingly admirable way. I mean, it proves the worth of who they are and what they do. So anyway, piece on Task and Purpose here says a 4-person rescue team from the U.S. Coast Guard was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and the Air Medal for their actions helping to rescue almost 200 flood victims in Texas. So the pilot, a guy named Ian Hopper, he's a lieutenant, and then Petty Officer 3rd Class Scott Ruska, they both got the Distinguished Flying Cross. And if you're not familiar, the Distinguished Flying Cross is for heroism or extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight. It's a big deal. Meanwhile, the co-pilot and the flight mechanic, a guy named Petty Officer Third Class Seth Reeves, and the co-pilot named Lieutenant Blair Aguafior, they both got the Air Medal. So good on them. 129 people died in this event. But their rescue team is Rescue 6553. They were actually down in the coastal regions. They were called inland, 150 miles inland. The weather was so bad that at times they were flying by instruments trying to get there. They arrived on station, and it says that basically over the course of 3 hours, that Coast Guard helicopter and other aircraft helped rescue nearly 200 people. 18 of those people flew out just on their Coast Guard helicopter themselves. So good on them. I'm proud of them. Can I have a round of applause for the Coast Guard Rescue Team 6553? 2 of them receiving Distinguished Flying Crosses and 2 Air Medals. Outstanding. Other things that are happening in and around and amongst the military-minded folks, just so as you know, there was a lot of contention early on, remember, about Trump deploying the National Guard to quell California rioting. Well, they did. They deployed, like upwards of 4,000 National Guardsmen have been deployed in California. That's how much civil unrest. I mean, I don't think it was getting near the news coverage that it could, probably because we had all the other things going on too, like, the Texas floods and the strikes on Iran and all of it. But the reality is we had 4,000 service members activated for duty in California. Well, just so you know, just a couple of days ago, it was announced on CNN that 2,000 of them are now being redeployed back to home station. So I would say this: success. Trump called up the National Guard. They went and did their part. Half of them are already done and going home. That's a good deal. That's a big deal. But yeah, so 2,000 of them are going home. California National Guard, it says, was called up in response to protests in the Los Angeles area as the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and Department of Homeland Security increased their enforcement in Southern California. Protests sprang up. This is a CNN article, so they're downplaying it big time. It was rioting. It wasn't just protests. There was rioting going on. You don't call out the National Guard because somebody's carrying a sign and singing songs. So yeah, they've had a lot going on in California. Gavin Newsom sued the federal government to not be allowed to use the National Guard. And by the way, when he runs for president, that needs to be hung around his neck like a boat anchor. But yeah, Gavin tried to stop the National Guard deployment, and the Supreme Court of the United States said, no, that is within the purview of the presidency, and they put it right back to work. I got another piece here. I got several from Task and Purpose. They were doing a good job this time. Task and Purpose doesn't always thrill me with their military articles, but it's better than military.com, which is like, I don't know, the Axios of military articles. But I got a piece here. So one of the things that I love about what's happening with the change in administration for the military, and I would love to get some of y'all's feedback, but I would dare say that we're seeing right now a shift in morale to the positive. And it's because people feel mission-minded. They feel like they are being given the opportunity to train for and do the things that they joined up to train for and do. You're not seeing the DEI hires getting the promotions. You're not seeing ridiculous policies like, having to constantly attend, privilege walks and critical race theory seminars as a military member. You're not seeing transgenders in service anymore. You're not seeing all of the social experimentation on the U.S. military. And you're certainly not seeing a watering down of the standards. In fact, if anything, the standards are tightening up. And it's everything. In fact, I got 2 articles here. Let me pull this one up first, since I said that. Standards. By the way, Air Force, I guess I'm picking on you. But Air Force has been, okay, some of y'all going to take issue with this, but Air Force has been known for years to have it a little bit easier, have it a little bit lighter, a little bit less tight on your people. Well, you're getting tightened up now. You can't wear any more of those fancy short boots that look more like tennis shoes. Aha. You can't. Okay. You can't wear eyelash extensions while you're in uniform. Who was wearing eyelash extensions on active duty?
Air Force, apparently. Hands in pockets too, isn't that them?
Yeah, apparently that's we've gotten rid of that. And they're also getting rid of the hot weather combat OCP uniform, which was like, now they're going to, anyway, the bottom line is they're changing things. The Army's gone back to a shaving. You better have a shaving profile or you better be clean shaven. No more of this beard stuff. That's going away. But yeah, it's Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force David Flossie wrote in a note on his official Facebook page that eyelash rules take effect in 30 days. Why does it take 30 days?
Get people to take their eyelashes off. Probably takes that long.
Are
Probably
they glued on that hard? How do those things
tell you,
work? All in eyelash extensions. Okay. Anyway, Air Force tightening up on this though too. This was the one that got me started on this. Article that came out just a couple of days ago. Air Force EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, bomb disposal people. Air Force EOD are going to take a new gender and age neutral fitness test. So what's happening here is they're looking around the force and they're finding people that are in what I would call a more direct action or combat arms related environment or MOS specialty. And they're saying to them, okay, guess what? This one is so important. This one is harder on the body. This one has higher standards for what is required of you when you're doing the job that you're trained for. And not to take away from people who serve in like medical technicians or company clerks or whatever, or JAG officers, all have a hugely important role. But they're not the ones toting a ruck and having to carry somebody or living in a foxhole or trying to service a tank that's broken down in the field. We're talking about the people who are in the combat arms have, over the last every few years here, have seen a watering down of the standards just to allow the DEI hires to move forward. No more. You've already seen, to be in the infantry and other combat arms, you've seen that they've gone to a gender neutral standard. If you want to be in, you better be in like everybody else is in, not getting anything special. Air Force EOD is doing the same thing now. Technicians will take a new gender and age neutral fitness test starting next month, the service has announced, with a medicine ball toss, a power lift, and a dynamic drill with 80 pounds of weight. To qualify for their jobs, all EOD troops will undergo one of the most rigorous training pipelines in the Air Force, but they have long allowed for different standards for gender. There you go. Not to take away from those that may be, females who want to be EOD, go for it. I say get her done. But what they're saying now is, if you're going to do it, you're going to be doing the same standard everybody else is. Because guess what? You got to do the same job. And that same job may require having to wear that massive, super heavy bomb-proof suit, or be able to pick up the 50-pound shell you just defused and carry it back to a safe place. All this to say, standards are tightening up, mission-focused, and I'm loving it. All right, take me to a break, JP. I'll come back. I got some more military-minded. You guys text me in. What are you thinking? In fact, anybody out there who's military right now, I'd love to hear if you're feeling different about things. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And he just laughs at me. He says, okay, kid, you grow my show. I teach you what I know. And we shook hands. And that was it. And so for the next 4.5 years, I sat at his feet learning everything I possibly could about the media industry. And I grew him from, he was on 80 stations when I started, grew it to 330 stations. And then we did a deal with Premiere and iHeart because I kind of laid the groundwork for the deal with Premiere and iHeart by the work I was doing with these iHeart stations. He meets with Julie Talbot. Boom, they signed the deal. Our American Stories is now partially owned by iHeart, which is the goal when you start a syndicated show, is for iHeart to pick it up, right? It never happens, though.
Right.
We got it done. It's now the number 10 show in the country. That actually happened 2 days ago. The rankings came out as the number 10 show, spoken word radio show in the country.
I saw him on Laura Ingram's show.
Yeah.
Probably about a year ago, actually. But
yeah,
I mean, they're still tight, apparently.
Oh, yeah, very. And, but I mean, he's above Mark Levin. He's above Glenn Beck, right? So it's that top 10 show in the country, right? And we took it from no one knew what it was to iHeart to top 10. I wasn't there for the iHeart to top 10. When iHeart picked up the show, my distribution sales, my affiliate relations stuff was done. I grew it as big as I could grow it. Now iHeart's going to take it and grow it. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. So he introduces me. This is July of 2020 when that deal firms up. If you guys remember, July of 2020, Summer of Love.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Wonderful
it was good times. Yeah, there was a virus going around. It was mild cold. And there was also a big election going on, if you'll remember. And so Bernie Marcus, one of the founders of Home Depot, who recently passed away, but in 2020 was trying to help Trump get reelected and had like 14 different groups trying to help Trump get reelected. One of them was a group called Job Creators Network based out of Atlanta that was doing a massive media-driven get out the vote effort with like Sean Hannity and Dan Bongino and Ben Shapiro and all these guys, and had to raise $6 million. And we had to execute this massive media-driven get out the vote effort. And so me and one other gal ended up raising the $6 million in like very short order. Raising money for political campaigns much easier than nonprofits.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And so raised $6 million in very short order. And then we had from July to November, blood, sweat, and tears, 80 hours a week, hardest I've ever worked my entire life until starting 1819. But just dog tired, come down on November 4th and watch the election get stolen.
Yep.
And I was just completely disenfranchised with national media, national politics, national fundraising, national. So I went to church shortly after that, feeling the weight of like trying to fix DC was like trying to squirt out the sun with a water pistol. It's just like, it's not doable. And heavy on my heart. I don't know what to do. Like I've all my eggs are in this media basket, and I feel like it's pointless, after that loss. So my pastor starts preaching on localism like a month later. Fathers fix your families, family being church, church community, community city, city county, county state. Like this is how we win, not top down but bottom up. I'm like,
revival starts here, not out there.
Correct.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay. And so I went home and prayed with Christina. God, how can I use my gifts, talents, abilities, resources, and relationships to make a difference for my people in place here in Alabama? And this is different when I'm telling this story because you were sitting there for it. A week later, I get a call from Caleb Crosby at the Alabama Policy Institute. He says, hey, we've got this guy who's going to start a radio show in Huntsville. Can you help give us some pointers on what we need to do? I said, sure. And so he begins to tell me about Rightside Radio. And he's like, what do you think? And so I kind of turn left here, turn right here, cross this T, dot this I, is what you need to do. And he goes, man, that sounds great. Thank you so much. He says, but what we also want to do in conjunction with building out a radio show, we want a statewide, state-focused news and multimedia company that can take out AL.com and can also source content so the radio show can talk about the journalists out, get the news, and then the news gets broadcast by the radio, right? It's this symbiotic relationship. And I said, I'll do it. And he said, well, I was hoping you were going to say that. And so there began the opportunity to create 1819 News. And, this is the dirty little secret I haven't told very many people in public settings. I didn't even read newspapers. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue. Like I didn't understand.
Well, I'd never done radio before.
Correct. And so I'm a radio guy doing news. You're a lawyer and a senator and a military guy doing radio.
Makes
so
no
we're
sense.
all figuring it out. But I didn't know much about publication. I understood the business side of media though, and I understood cultural architecture, and I understood the power of media. I understand how media shapes culture and culture shapes politics. Like I got that. I understood a lot of but as far as news and publication, I didn't. And so I've had to hire excellent people and have since learned a ton about it, but I wasn't going to let that opportunity go. When someone calls you and was like, hey, do you want to start a news outlet for the state?
No,
Yes.
And God put some amazing people, because since I know them,
Yeah.
I mean, I know the majority of your crew.
Yeah.
And some of them come on my show on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You surrounded yourself with some quality people.
Jeff.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. I'm on this military-minded piece. I got a couple more stories I was going to share with you that I think are fairly significant. So this one is going to get the attention of some of you out there that are in the defense contracting industry, especially those of y'all that are into the manufacturing or the implementation piece, not just the research. So get this. There's a new bill being introduced right now in the Senate. Task and Purpose has the article. It came out a few days ago. It's called the Right to Repair Bill. What does that mean? Well, so apparently, and I can vouch for this in some degree, modern contracting rules often say that most of those critical systems on places like U.S. Navy ships or major weapon systems used by the Army or military systems overall can only be fixed by defense contractors, not by the military service members themselves. Like you got to call the contractor in to repair it. You see that a lot, especially in the high tech stuff, not just weapon systems, but like, tech. When one of those systems breaks, the article says, whether a vital weapon or a machine that produces fresh water, sailors and soldiers may not have the tools, the training, or permission to fix them. And some view this as a Achilles heel for the U.S. military. So we're looking right now at a push to require a right to repair as a staple of military contracting, with rules that require future weapon systems to be delivered with manuals, tools, and access to the parts and information to be able to get it done without having to call and have a contractor flown out. Man, I just be honest with you, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a real good idea. Last one I got, and I share this because I think this clearly indicates that we are in a different time. Military minded on this one. When you read between the lines, you realize, holy cow, it's a different environment right now. So in a 52-46 party line vote this past week, the Senate confirmed former Brigadier General Anthony Tata to become the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. Okay, sounds great. Why is it significant? Because in the last Trump administration, they tried to get Tata nominated to another Undersecretary of Defense position for policy in that case. But his nomination was withdrawn after Republicans, not Democrats, but Republicans on the Senate Armed Services Committee canceled his confirmation hearing. Why? Pray tell, what did they do? Well, they found out that he had made incendiary comments about the former President Barack Obama, calling him a terrorist leader. Hang on. Let me get this straight. Republicans didn't want a confirmation hearing on a retired brigadier general because they felt like he'd been mean to Obama. Let that sink in. Fast forward to today. The man just got confirmed. Bam, he's in. We are in a different environment right now. Absolutely different environment. Think about that. That was Republicans shooting down a Republican nomination simply because he was mean to a Democrat. Fast forward 4 years later. Same guy, same person, almost the same position. Just got confirmed. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. A couple of quick text messages. Badger from Athens says, when I went through basic training in the early 90s, my sister flight was the inaugural flight to have to do the same my sister flight was the inaugural flight to have to do the same obstacle course as the men. There you go. Okay, cool. Herb from Gurley says, I'm not sure what he's saying. Oh, Mundami. Okay, Mundami. He calls him Mendummy.
Mendummy, yeah.
Okay, now I see it. The guy running for office in New York is popular because the Democrats are so dissatisfied with what they have now. It's an in-your-face move against the Republicans. It's also, though, a cut-off-their-nose-to-spite-their-face move for the Democrats. Decent analysis.
Or it's just New York City economy so bad they think socialism's the best answer because they're all rich, liberal theater kids.
And there were a bunch of skulls full of mush who I saw doing street interviews who were like, I don't know. I just wanted somebody different.
Somebody new. Yeah.
Somebody is fresh, maybe.
But it's Mondani himself said in an interview that, well, if I fail, my parents can just bail me out, like that. He is a rich, or not, I want to say rich, but you know what I'm saying?
He's
like,
a trust fund baby.
He's a trust, like that's what it appears at least. So I don't know. I think that breeds that ideology.
I got some more text messages. We got our final half hour coming up on Thankful Thursday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
I mean, I could say that about so many people on the team. Jeff Poor, that was when 1819 became real, legitimate, and serious. Is when we made him the editor-in-chief. Talking about a guy who worked for Tucker Carlson, directly for Tucker Carlson. Steve Bannon came and personally hired Jeff Poor away from Tucker Carlson. Talking like two of my favorite guys. Okay, Jeff worked directly for them. And then I was able to hire him away. Steve Bannon brought him to Breitbart, and I was able to hire him from Breitbart to be the editor of 1819 News.
Yeah,
total God thing, and he's killed it. He is. There's no one else that could do that job in the state.
I think it must have been you. Somebody told me at one point you were sort of shopping for the guy who was going to be the editor in chief, and somebody said to you, "Why are you looking at other resumes when you got Jeff Poor in your backyard?" or something like that.
I was told that about 20 times. So we were literally pounding the phones looking
so it
for
took
people.
convincing.
Yeah, it took some convincing. But what's funnier, and this is a shout out to April Marie Fogel. So her and I didn't start off on the best foot. Now she works for us, and she's
Right.
an absolute assassin.
Right.
She's unbelievable. She's so good. I heard that she was going to write a hit piece on 1819 News. We're talking 3.5 years ago. Okay. So I call her and I ask her, like, hey, heard you're going to do a hit piece on us. I'm an open book. And she's like, who are your donors? I'm like, not answering that one. But other than that, I'm an open book, right? We need to protect our donors anyway. And so she says, so she asked me all these other questions. And man, she's just hammering me, like beating the crap out of me. And at the end,
Who's
she's
she
like,
working for at the time doing this?
she had Ale Today, her own
Okay,
little
yeah.
publication or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, she
That's
could have
right.
published it anywhere. But, at the end of it, she's like, well, who's your editor? And went into who it was. And she's like, why is he your editor? Da, 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 da. And she goes, and she was the first one to say it. She goes, you know who needs to be your editor is Jeff Poor. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because he was writing for us at the time. But it was like, just like, he'd throw in a couple articles a week or something. He wasn't, way high up. And I'm like, he's never going to leave Breitbart to come work for me.
And he's got his own radio show.
Correct.
Mobile.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's not going to do this. I go see him in Fairhope, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I saw the job posting. I was hoping you were going to say something." You know what I mean? And my vision was, I want to take all of the skills that I learned in national media and apply it to my state to fix my state. You know what Jeff told me? We went down to Fairhope and we had lunch. And he said, "Man, I've had all this national media success and experience." He's like, "I want to take everything I've learned and I want to change our state." So like verbatim what my vision and mission was. And I'm like, whoa. And so we hired him, and it's been.
Well, I can speak from the outside looking in. It was a great decision.
Yeah.
I mean, it just absolutely was. And you guys were already killing it. And then he came on, and I think he just added to it in such a way that, turbocharged it. All right. You guys have built a platform. All right. So first of all, I will say this, having been a former state politician, now a recovering state politician.
Yes.
I can tell you that there are people in Montgomery who the first thing they do when they get up in the morning is open up to see what people are saying about me, because they live for the affirmation or the, oh gosh, I got to fix the misconception, or you know, they're not their own person. Their identity is being elected, and so they swarm to the idea. And then there's the others who want to know what the general sense of things is in our state, because before I vote on the bill, and then there's those who are there's a deep state in Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
Who are checking to make sure no one's exposing the deep state.
Yeah.
And then there's a lobbyist group who are making sure the bill's not getting maligned. And then, it's on and on and on, but they were all sourcing it from the same, just ragged pieces.
Yeah.
And I'll name them. AL.com and Alabama Political Reporter were awful. Yellowhammer at the time was probably the premier that we could go to and feel like we weren't going to get just maligned or slimed.
Yeah.
But you guys came along with 1819, and I will just tell you right now, outsider looking in, y'all are the go-to now.
Yeah.
And this has been, 4 years?
Exactly 4 years.
Yeah, 4
July
years.
1st.
Yeah, so we were 4 years on the air last week,
and
you guys are 4 years out in the world.
Yeah.
But I'll just affirm that. I really think that you guys have just nailed it. Still more to do.
Yeah.
But you have nailed it. And, here's AL.com now having to paywall everything and laying their staff off, and you guys keep growing.
Yep.
I think there was a hunger for truth in news reporting.
Who knew?
Who knew? All right, let me do this. I gotta move forward. I mean, now that I've blown all that smoke up your skirt, let's talk about one of the hardest things that I know you guys have been through.
Yeah.
In a few minutes here.
Just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Yes, I'm talking about this show. It goes, really, from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga, and from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, that's just the radio. And then all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show every day. Love that. Thank you so much for going to places like Rumble and X and Facebook and YouTube and our website, rightsidemedia.org, and just watching the show live stream as it goes. And then there's a bunch of y'all that podcasted after the fact. We know that because we can see the numbers. So thank you very much, all of you, no matter where you get this show. Thank you for being a part of the fabric of our lives. We do this because of you. It would not work without you. I like saying it at least 2 or 3 times a show. All right. So let me jump on a couple more text messages so I catch them all up. Brian from Harvest says, I don't understand the having to shave thing in the military, because they've actually done tests on people who were warriors who had facial hair, who did not have facial hair. And most likely the person without the facial hair would suffer a broken jaw than the person with the beard, because the punch would stick a lot better.
Actually, there's been studies on this in combat sports of guys with beards have, obviously if it's a thin one, probably won't do much, but you get a cushion on your jaw, less likely to get knocked out.
Will it stop a 5.56 round?
That, you'd probably have to have like a Phil Robertson beard to have a, but no, definitely won't.
But here's the other piece though. It's hard to seal a gas mask with it.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And so when they're training people on NBC warfare and they've got to wear a mask, and then they got a big old honking beard, which looks cool. I had one in Afghanistan. It was cool, but you weren't wearing a gas mask with that bad boy. At least not getting the same kind of seal that you would want to have when the nerve agent's flying around.
If you get into a hand-to-hand combat with somebody, then you have a slightly less possibility of getting knocked out.
It's true.
I guess
that's true. I'll go with it. All right. So in hand-to-hand combat with a beard gives you an edge. I get it. All right. Jack from Huntsville says, I'm torn between 2 contradictory thoughts regarding Mondani in the New York mayoral race. He said, one is that I hate to see the citadel of capitalism being laid low by the scourge of progressivism, socialism, communism. Well, that's a great phrase. I love that. So the other will be the pure schadenfreude of watching the voters who will have this voter disaster in have to live with the consequences of their idiotic choices. You know what I'm concerned about, though? And Jack, by the way, great text. I'm concerned about the fact that many people believe that those who vote him in but have money will bail out and go somewhere else, leaving behind those who, because he did not. If you look at the wins, he did not prevail in the lower income neighborhoods. He prevailed in the upper income, more affluent neighborhoods. And that's crazy, because those are the ones that would suffer the most under socialism. And yet they're going to be the ones who also leave. So what do you got, man? But
I was to say that I believe there's a clip of him saying something about derogatory towards rich white people or something.
Oh, no. He said he was going to tax the white neighborhoods higher.
That's what it was. But the rich white neighborhoods are what voted him in. So it's a bit of it. You can blame the voters on that, but it's just a contradiction, but pretty funny in my opinion too.
This almost feels like an Adam Sandler movie in the making. Don't mess with the Zohan. That's what it feels like we're doing here. We're about to watch this crazy story of the that nobody thought he would win candidate, who everybody's like, what? And he's coming out of nowhere and he's going to create chaos. And it's also like got a comedy attached to it, but it's not funny. It's real. It's a Greek tragedy.
He knows how to campaign. He knows how to message. He did it very, very well.
He did. People who are entranced by someone's social media are going to have to live with their policies.
They get what they vote for.
Just saying. Ken from Decatur sent me something that makes no sense. What is that? Was he trying to send me a link?
Morse code.
Okay. Ken, thanks very much. JT from Lacey Springs says, got to see some of your CNN debut. Thank you. The only thing you and Navarro would have in common is if she lived next door would be goose scoot. I would make sure all the geese stayed in her yard. You know how I feel about goose poop. I mean, like scoot through a goose, man. All right. It's a great Thankful Thursday, he says. Thanks, JT. And then Brian from Harvest said Chuck Norris's beard would stop a 5.56 round.
Chuck Norris's beard? Chuck Norris would stop a 5.56.
That's right.
Stick up his hand and just say stop. It would stop.
Just tell the gun not to work. It would just be a thing. All right, text it in. We got time. Text it in if you want to. Let me tell you, this Mondani guy, I got a whole dipper I was going to do on it. I'm not sure I'm going to get there, but I'm going to touch on a few pieces of it. I've got one piece from the Daily Wire. I love the title of it, which is why I grabbed it. But I love the title. It says, Socialism in a Designer Suit. That's what Mondani is socialism in a designer suit. That's not supposed to work. socialism is supposed to be like, everyone wears the communal uniform. They all wear Mao's hat and the red star on it.
Well, that's because it's never been done right, Phil. Mamdani's
okay.
going to do it the right way this time.
Now I understand. He's going to make socialism work for the first time. Daily Wire says so far Zoran Mamdani, the 33-year-old who won he's 33 years old. He's going to run one of the biggest cities in the world with a budget that is bigger than all but 4 states in America. Do you know that I said it earlier in the show, but did you know, I read the other day that if New York City were to break off and become its own country, it would have the 12th largest economy in the world. In the world. That's unreal. And this guy is going to have the checkbook. All right. It says in heavily Democratic New York, the Republican radio host Curtis Sliwa, which is not a serious candidate, in my opinion. Curtis Sliwa, neat guy, started the Guardian Angels, done some cool stuff. The beret's not working for him anymore. I think it's time to take it off. He has little chance of winning. A recent poll puts Mamdani at 36% compared to Sliwa's 16%. That means the only man standing between Mamdani and the mayor's office is Eric Adams, a Democrat who last year was charged with bribery and campaign finance violations. He's also angered his own party by failing to enforce or oppose immigration enforcement. All that to say, we're looking at a very weird dynamic. Mamdani has got the Democrat nomination. Am I right? Is Eric Adams running as an independent?
Yep. And actually, I think this was this week or maybe last week, but Cuomo is actually running again as an independent. So he lost in the Democrat primary pretty handily to Mamdani, but now he's running again as an independent.
Is it possible that I might wind up rooting for a Cuomo?
Well, it's funny to me how he thinks it's going to actually work this time, but yeah, I think this is Mamdani's to have.
I think this right now, what could be interesting though? If Eric Adams and Cuomo mount a strong enough, they're not going to draw away from Republicans. They're going to draw away from Democrats. And if that happens, if there's enough fear of Mamdani that they split the vote, Curtis Sliwa could move forward. That could be interesting.
That could. I didn't even know who he was till you mentioned him. I've only known the Cuomo, Adams, and Mamdani, so I don't know much about.
Yeah, Curtis Sliwa is if I'm not mistaken, he's the guy that started the group called the Guardian Angels. And they were like a picture neighborhood watch on steroids. And they wore maroon berets, and they would walk the neighborhoods, and they would basically be like good guy enforcers, making sure that crime stays out.
Like what Whitfin thinks is going to solve a crime in Birmingham. That same thing.
It's a little better than that.
yeah,
it's a little better than that one. So Curtis Sliwa made his name in that regard, and they've done good things. But it's just something. I mean, listen, I just don't see him as a serious candidate. So there's that. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney from upstate New York, criticized Mamdani the other day, calling him a Marxist anti-Semite. If you remember, there's a big kerfluffle over the fact that in an interview, he declined to condemn the slogan, globalize the Intifada. All right, globalize the Intifada. What does that mean? That means war on Jews worldwide. That's what that means. War on Israel worldwide. So for him to say, or to avoid the condemnation of that phrase, became a serious thing. And interesting enough, there's a story that broke today. Let me see if I can go back to it real quick. It's CNN reports in a shift. This is today. This was like published like maybe 15, 20 minutes ago. How about that? That's how relevant and timely this show is, by golly. Anyway, in a shift, it says, Mamdani tells business leaders he will discourage the use of the phrase globalize the Intifada. I will discourage its use. Why don't you say, don't nobody say that in my administration? It won't happen. I don't agree with that. That's all you got to say. Condemn it.
Well, that on top of him saying he's going to arrest Netanyahu if he comes to town.
Good luck with that, dude. I'm pretty sure the Mossad would have something to say about you after that point. Zoran Mamdani told a group of top business leaders in New York City on Tuesday he would discourage the use of the phrase globalize the Intifada, according to 2 people who were in the room during the meeting, making a notable shift in rhetoric for the Democratic nominee. That's because he knew that the biggest piece of backlash he got was from the idea that he might be truly anti-Semitic and harmful to Jews in New York City if he becomes mayor. And the Jewish community is livid over this. And so here he is finally softening his stance. I will discourage the use of that phrase. I will discourage the use of that phrase.
It's a little harsh. I wouldn't go that far. Maybe slightly globalize the Intifada.
The other thing that I think is crazy is I don't know how Democrats keep doing this. The man lies about who he is. So Pocahontas can lie about being a Native American on her, Elizabeth Warren can lie about her Native American roots in order to get a scholarship or an admission to a university. You got, what's his name, Blumenthal, that lied about his Vietnam service, gets away with it.
AOC lied about being from the Bronx.
Oh, AOC says she's a Bronx or Queens.
It was one of the, but anyway, she's a suburbs.
She's a suburb girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's high school pictures of her. Anyway, Zohran Mamdani is no different. Basically, when he filled out his application to go to Columbia University, he checked the identity boxes for Asian, his family's from India, and Black, which is a flat-out lie.
Yeah.
And just like that, it says, and just like that Cherokee, Senator Elizabeth Warren. When the Times asked him about it, Mamdani said he didn't consider himself either Black or African-American, but rather an American who was born in Africa. Shut up. He was, by the way, born in the continent of Africa, but his parents immigrated there from India and then later came to the United States. So, old boy can lie because what he was really doing, you know what he was doing. He was trying to gain some affirmative action admissions. By the way, he was not accepted. Let that sink in. He was not accepted. Daily Signal reports that this ain't going away. The Daily Signal reports that all of his skeletons are coming out of the closet. So can they do enough? I mean, when's the election, JP? Isn't it August? Isn't it coming up?
Yeah. Let me look.
I mean, I think it's coming up fast. Municipal elections are typically an August timeframe. They throw them off of the
November 4th, 2025.
Okay, so November of this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow. All right, listen, here's the thing. Watch this race. It matters. It does matter. It does matter to you in Alabama. Why does it matter? Because it's something that we're going to have, the Republicans are going to have available to us to use as a bludgeon against any Democrat who runs for dog catcher. But the other piece of this is a major influential piece of America. What happens in New York City often winds up having impacts way outside of New York City. And if you have a socialist / communist running that city, it's going to have an inordinate amount of effect on other places around the nation, and it could have trickle-down effects into things like commerce and law and tourism and all kinds of things. So watch, keep your eyes on it. More to come. It's coming up fast. All right, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Last break of the day. Come right back and clear ourselves out on a thankful Thursday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. November of, what was it, 2023.
Yep.
Guy named Bubba Copeland.
Yeah. Great guy.
Down in Lee County. Yeah. Was living dual lives, portraying himself one way during the day, living a very awkward, prurient lifestyle after hours. And the story dropped in your lap, and y'all decided to run with the story. And you made national news for all the reasons you'd rather not, because he wound up taking his own life.
Sure.
You and I were talking last night at dinner. That was not just a news story. That was a cultural episode for you guys at 1819. Tell me a little bit about that, the decision-making to actually run with the story and the aftermath, and any thoughts on it since.
Sure. That situation was you have situations like prison was for me. It was make or break. You have in an organization, you have these moments which are existential crises that you go through where this is either going to make us or it's going to break us. But if it makes us, we're going to be galvanized and unified and battle tested. But if we're not, it's going to break us. And that was a make or break. And so there's a story behind it. I had a World War II pilot. This is the short version of the story, who flew P-51 Mustangs. And about 3 or 4 years before I started 1819 News, God gave me this story. I won't go through the whole story, But essentially, I'm in his house. He lives with his son, and his son is a pastor friend of mine. And I was looking at this P-51 Mustang replica. Well, Bill Brown, he was shot down in the Battle of Iwo Jima. His plane was ripped to shreds by anti-aircraft artillery. He crashed in the Pacific Ocean. And he was rescued by an American submarine in enemy waters, right? Unbelievable. So I'm wanting to talk to him. Well, I never really got the opportunity to talk to him, but we're about to leave, and I'm looking at this P-51 Mustang replica, okay? And he's 92 years old, and he's in a motorized wheelchair. I'm looking, just fascinated by this propeller plane that he flew in one of the greatest battles in our nation's history, and what it would be like to be in a propeller plane having it ripped to shreds by anti-aircraft artillery, you know.
Yeah.
And he rolls up beside me, and it kind of startled me. And I looked down. I said, you know, he says, Brian. I said, yes, sir. He said, Brian, there was a time when we did what was right, even if they shot bullets at us. He said, Brian, there's coming a time in your life when you're going to have to do what's right, even if they shoot bullets at you. And he rolled off. That is our motto at 1819 News. We're going to do what's right, even if they shoot bullets at us. And it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it, okay? And that moment, we had to make that decision. And so we find out that this guy who is a mayor of Smith Station, he is the pastor of First Baptist Church.
This is the Bubba Copeland we're talking
about.
about.
Yeah, Bubba Copeland.
Yeah.
First Baptist Church, Phoenix City.
Yep.
And he's living in a double life as an online trans porn star. Okay. I am a worldview guy, and call it what you will, whatever. Not only was he an online trans porn star, he was writing homoerotic slasher fiction. I didn't know that was a genre until this. Okay. And what that means is he's writing stuff where it's obviously like, you know, depicting homosexual sexual fantasies that is just sick. And then he's also talking about killing people in these writings. I didn't make it that far into reading it, okay? Craig did. And shout out to Craig. Craig is
Craig
the most
Monger,
Craig Monger
yeah.
is the guy is unbelievable. I mean, this story embodies how unbelievable it is, but every, like, all of our huge, bombastic, like, heavy-hitting stories, you know, 80% of the time it's going to have Craig's name on it, right? And this one was no different. And he had to read all this stuff. I read one paragraph, and I knew that he was having sex with all the kids in his church just by reading that first paragraph, okay? It was sick. He was, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to go too far into it, but he was literally just describing what it was like to have gay sex in this first paragraph and how wonderful it was and everything else, and like crazy detail. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And by day, he's a pastor at First Baptist Church.
Correct. And then also the mayor of Smith Station.
And mayor of Smith Station.
And it is just like, whoa. And then we found he has these memes on his social media account. And the meme is a picture of a boy. And then it looks like the boy transitioned into a girl. And so it's a meme that's encouraging children to transition their gender. And it says, get the shot, take the jab, become the whore, on this meme that he's encouraging children to transition their gender. Well, we published that. Well, the parents reach out and was like, hey, could you take my kids down? Like, what, those are your kids? Those are real, like, those are real people. He's like, yeah, no, we're in the community. That's my 14-year-old son and my 17-year-old daughter. Could you please take them down?
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So he's taking pictures of kids in the community, making memes about transitioning, making it look like this boy transitioned into this girl when it was a brother and a sister. I mean, I could go on for hours.
He was using real people
in his community.
Now, I know he was doing that in his writings too, wasn't he?
Yes, in his writings.
People's identities too.
Correct. Yeah. So we have all that. That was what convinced us to write the first story, was some of the writings. We didn't know about the, you know, writing to talk about killing and all that stuff. We just saw the
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Got a few quick texts, and I'll go to the phones. Adam from Athens says, I worked in the ER during COVID, was made to shave my beard to wear a repertoire if needed. Okay. He said, I was given a list of, I think it means a rebreather, but I was given a list of CDC approved facial hair, and the Hitler stash toothbrush was on there. Holy cow. He said, needless to say, I wore the toothbrush for a while. Wow. John from Harvest says, socialism is the Axe body spray of ideologies. It doesn't deliver what it promises, but people too young to know better keep buying it.
Wow. That's actually perfect.
Hit him some applause and some laughter, because that is awesome. Socialism is the Axe body spray of ideologies. It doesn't deliver what it promises, but people too young to know better keep buying it. John from Harvest wins the text line today. Real quickly, John from Huntsville says, Butters gets a solid A for his solid performance. Lee, JP, and JD Hayworth all get an A+ for their equally fantastic performance. It means today's winner is obviously the magnificent Phil Williams. Thank you very much. With a perfect A+ for his absolutely incredible performance. Congratulations. Have a good, thankful Thursday night. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, man. All right, we're going to the phones right now because he's on there right now. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Jeff,
I made it through Nashville. That's all that matters.
Well,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, good on you, man. So you're already through Nashville. You're moving fast.
Yeah, I just got through Nashville. Thank goodness. It's a booger today.
Well, what do you think about all the stuff we've been talking about, man? What are your thoughts?
On this drug stuff and everything, yeah. This should have been done long time ago because it's been like this forever. How come our politicians are for this? Well, I know why, because they was all paid off by the drug companies. So you got the.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, RFK was in a hearing not long ago, and he flat out called out. I think it was Bernie Sanders. He said, "You took X amount, millions of dollars for your campaign account from Big Pharma." It's crazy.
Oh no, I didn't. No, I didn't. He's sitting there trying to deny it all, everything. Of course, in the Democrat world, all you got to do is deny it. Well, he's telling the truth. It's only Republicans that lie.
Yes, that's all.
But,
we always we're the ones who have trouble dealing with facts. Never mind.
Yeah.
What do you think about Mondani, man? Do you think is Mondani going to be a boat anchor for Democrats, or are they gonna be able to embrace him?
Well, in the Democrat Party, I'm sorry, but you can't fix stupid. And people in New York apparently are, they got AOC, they got all these other ones, Schumer and everybody else they vote for. You got basically Jews in New York City that, would probably vote for Hitler, I guess, if he was a Democrat, because they're just, I don't know, they're just out of their mind, I believe. They have no clue what's going on.
I look at it, and you're right. I mean, the people they keep electing from there, Kathy Hochul's the governor. I mean, I had guys on my team overseas that were from upstate New York, and they all said they just wish that New York City would break off and be its own state because it literally is just constantly driving the politics. But upstate New York is more conservative. And by the way, they also got in New York City, they got Jerry Nadler. So they got the troll, they got the barista, now they got the socialist Marxist. It's unreal.
If we could just put New York and Chicago together, I guess it'd be just let them hang out there by themselves, and the rest of the state could be all right. It's like Illinois. Anything south of Chicago, they're actually normal people, and they just don't have the numbers to outvote Chicago.
There are these massive, like Portland, Oregon drives the politics. Seattle, Washington drives the politics. San Francisco, Oakland, LA drives the politics for that whole state. It's amazing. And then people wonder why we want an electoral college, because we don't want the blue states driving the politics for the entire nation. But
it's about like when I was running for office and everything. I'm the only Republican in this Democrat county, and I would go around, and give everybody my platform and everything stuff, and if I had a dime for every time somebody said, well, I agree with everything you say, but my daddy would turn over his thing if I ever vote for Republican.
I know, brother. Hey, listen, the music's playing, man. I got to go. You be safe on the road. All right, brother?
Have a good one, Phil.
Hey, man. All right, you guys, all of you. Thankful Thursday. Do not forget, there are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.